You can please circulate the YouTube live link, post it on Telegram.
Yes, ma'am, we are live.
Yes, thank you. Two minutes, I'll begin. Namaste and welcome to day 2 of the International Conference organized by Bombay Teachers Training College, Women Development Cell, in collaboration with Department of Women's Studies, University of Calicut, Faculty of Humanities, University of Johannesburg, Asian African Association for Women, Gender and Sexuality, and the Association for the Schools of Social Work in Africa. We began yesterday with our session on the main theme. The inaugural session had Dr. Amia Bhaumik as the chief guest, a professor and the founder and director of Lincoln University College, Malaysia. Dr. Amia Bhaumik sir emphasized on the problem of gender mainstreaming and also suggested that it can be eradicated with right education and by following the different scriptures of different religions. We had our guest of honor, Ms. Rakhi Vaswani, a chef and an entrepreneur. She talked about gender inequality in kitchen, and she also shared her story of how she became a successful entrepreneur. Age is not a barrier, and one is never too old to start a new career. Our third guest of honor was Harish Iyer, who began by telling us about the plight of women and men both. He talked about the binaries of gender inequality. However, he suggested that it was right if we talk about not just women empowerment, but also men empowerment, because these are the two edges or ends of the binary. Our theme sessions began, the technical sessions, with Dr. Vibhuti Patel, who spoke about gender budgeting and gender empowerment through gender budgeting and perspectives on that. She emphasized on how impact of gender budgeting is so important on economy. And it is important that the need of flagship for inventing the national policy, intervening the national policies, and the importance of financial decentralization be taken care of in order to achieve gender mainstreaming. Our next speaker was Dr. Madhavi Venkatesan from AAA WGS USA. And she concluded on a very crucial message that we should value our relationships, families, bonds, and things that are close to us and ethical, which is in today's time replaced by the economic needs and measures. She suggested that change is possible, and it is possible only when we value the intrinsic character of things and people. Our next speaker was Professor Shahana Rasool from Department of Social Work, University of Johannesburg. Madam rightly stated that it was high time that we begin to value the unpaid care that a woman renders in order to fulfill her role in the societal formulated norms and roles. She threw light upon a very crucial issue, violence against women, and how this exploitation has just got the progress hampered in all ways all over the world. We had with us Dr. Komotso Jongman, who also talked about gender-based violence, especially in the context of his country, Botswana. Violence against women undermines the integrity, autonomy, and dignity of a woman. He also said that it creates fear in the minds of women and that causes them to always look behind their back. He mentioned that gender violence today has been the most ignored pandemic. Ended for a lunch break, and we again gathered together for paper presentation sessions at 2 o'clock. We continued our paper presentations in 6 parallel sessions, and in each session we had around 10 to 12 presentations. These were very effectively moderated by session chairs, and we were helped by student volunteers and faculty volunteers in this. Today, day 2, I welcome all the participants, students, and our dignitaries. Today, as our first session, we have Professor Jaya Dantas, who is Dean International in the Faculty of Health Sciences and Professor of International Health at Curtin University in Western Australia. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Let me tell you all about Dr. Dantas. Madam has worked for 33 years in India, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Timor-Leste, and Australia, and has taught and undertaken research in many countries, for example, Pakistan, Kosovo, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and South Africa. Dr. Dantas has been a delegate to the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations in New York since 2015. In 2013, she was made a fellow of the Public Health Association in Australia. And in 2010, she had won an Australian National Award for university teaching. Congratulations, ma'am, for all these achievements. Since 2000, she leads a program of research in refugee and migrant health, focusing on women and youth. In the post-conflict countries of her research, context, culture, and the social determinants are central and display resilience and agency to improve health, safety, and well-being. She will share findings from her recent research projects using participatory and mixed methods and discuss the gendered impacts of COVID-19 on women's health. I welcome you, ma'am, and over to you for your address.
Thank you very much, Neelu, and greetings to everyone from Western Australia. I am in Perth, and I'm on the land of the Indigenous people of Whadjuk Noongar, and I send my warm wishes to everyone who is online here. I'd like to now share my screen, if that's okay, and I will see how I go with that.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
It's visible?
Yes.
Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, you can put it on slideshow.
Okay. Is it on slideshow now, Neelu?
No, ma'am, not on our screen.
Okay.
Ma'am, you can click from beginning on the left side. There's from beginning, yes.
I have tried to click that. And it's...
Ma'am, try clicking from current slide.
No, there's some problem with those. Ma'am, you can switch it off and again switch it on your PPT.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes and not even 2 minutes, half a second, and I'll do that. I'll close and reopen the PowerPoint. Is that okay, Neelu?
Yes, ma'am.
No, it's the wrong one. Just a minute.
No, it isn't happening, ma'am. I think we can continue like this.
Okay, I will just change my... Is it better now?
It's gone.
Now?
No, the slide isn't.
We can't see your PPT, ma'am.
Okay. I think because I'm
Ma'am,
working
stop
on...
sharing and then share again.
Okay, let me just stop sharing. And because I'm actually working with 2 screens, that's I think one of the
Okay.
problems. But what I'll do is I'll start while I'm fixing this and go from there. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, would you want to press F5 on your screen? Probably that may help refresh it.
I have it on my screen. I have it on my screen. I just have to look at the settings and just see whether... Where are the settings?
Jaya, another option.
Yes.
Could you please mail it to Neelu so that she will present it and you can carry on? I think that will be a better option. Please mail it to Neelu, the PPT.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute. I know I've done something
Whatever you are
now.
sharing is pretty much visible. So if you are
Yes.
feeling comfortable, you can share the screen.
What I've done is I've changed the position on the setting. We'll try one more time and see and go from there. Okay.
Ma'am, your screen is visible. You can start. We can see the screen, not on slideshow, but then still it's visible.
Okay. I'd just like to give a little bit of a background where I come from and my positioning. I grew up in India and I arrived in East Africa as a young woman. It was my first exposure to three world events that were taking place at that time in Africa. One was the genocide in Rwanda. The second one was the end of apartheid in Africa. And the third one was the reality of the HIV/AIDS pandemic. So basically, these were three important events that were taking place in Africa. And I worked with civilians and communities who had moved beyond pain and displayed a unique resilience. I had grown up in a very conservative family in Mumbai, where you're protected. I finished my master's degree, taught at a women's university. But in Africa, here I was exposed to violence. I was exposed to people who were rebuilding their lives after conflict. It framed my practice and research. And at the same time, it also made me really interested in education and health inequalities that are faced by people globally. Then in 2000, I moved to Australia. And when I moved to Australia, I undertook a PhD in Rwanda. And the PhD was looking at leadership and in post-conflict rebuilding. After that, between 2003 and 2012, I traveled to Timor-Leste to look at the impacts of migration, mobility, and vulnerability on populations. In 2005, I undertook vulnerability assessments with youth affected by conflict. And in 2012, went back to Uganda and undertook community consultations with midwives, mothers, and fathers. And in between 2005 and 2019, in Western Australia, I undertook a number of photo voice projects, and I'll talk about this a little bit. And basically, I joined in 2012 Graduate Women WA and Australian Federation of Graduate Women. These are national organizations that look at education and empowerment of women. But in all my career and in all my teaching and practice, what I found was that women were impacted disproportionately by conflict, by rebuilding, by pandemics. So when I was exposed to the first pandemic, the HIV pandemic, when I was in Uganda, at that time, it was young women who were exposed or who experienced this difficult situation of HIV when they didn't know what HIV was. In Timor-Leste, you had the conflict with Indonesia. In Sri Lanka, the 20-year conflict with the LTT and the government has disproportionately impacted women. And in Uganda, with 20 years of conflict, you had women who had actually worked to move beyond pain. They had terrible trauma, terrible loss. In Western Australia, I'm going to share a little bit about Australia because that's where I lived for the last 21 years. But in Australia, we have the National Women's Alliances that have been created by the federal government. And one of the things that the alliances do is support women in different ways and also to have a policy and program impact. And I also have attended, as president of Australian Graduate Women, the Commission on the Status of Women. So from 2015, I have attended the Commission on the Status of Women, and this is a gathering of women at the United Nations each year in March. So in 1995, women from different parts of the world met in Beijing. And one of the things that women did was basically to come together and have practices that were global, not only at the country level, but to have these conversations for change. So every year between 5,000 and 8,000 women meet and discuss policy and practice. And there are intergovernment organizations and there are not-for-profit organizations in this. The next slide I have is the WHO definition of health. Can you see this, Neelu? The WHO definition of health?
It's visible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So one of the things that the WHO did was have this definition of health, which is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So this was the preamble to the Constitution of the WHO in 1946. And I think it's really important to remember this, because when you look at the biomedical model of health, you look at what disease a person has, what infirmity the person has. But in actual reality, it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. We then had in 1978 the Declaration of Alma-Ata, which was an international conference on primary health care at Alma-Ata in the former Soviet republics. And it affirmed that health is a fundamental human right. So governments have the responsibility for the health of their people. And I think this is really, really important to understand that it's governments of every country that have the responsibility for education and health. And often that is overlooked in lieu of, say, defense spending, and in lieu of other objectives that governments might have. And primary healthcare is healthcare based on socially acceptable methods at a cost that the community can afford. And here I've actually shown the interrelated dimensions of health. We have social connectedness, we have education, gender comes in that, physical environment, we have housing, we have ethnicity, we have early childhood development, health and social services, the built environment, we have economic and working conditions, culture, income. So all of these are interrelated and impact how health is visible or is important to people. Now, I want to talk a little bit about social cohesion. You can see the next slide, Neelu?
Yes.
And in social cohesion, I talk about social equality. I talk about social inclusion, where people are valued for their differences, where in social equality, where people from isolated or vulnerable groups or marginalized groups have the same rights of freedom of speech, social goods and services. Then there is social capital, which is a very much bottom-up approach that originates with people forming social connections. And then there is social diversity, which is a simple philosophy that creates an inclusive, accepting, and compassionate world. And our world today is much more diverse here. And I live in Western Australia, and Australia is a multicultural immigrant nation. So most immigrant nations have this multicultural group of people that live. I would like to share here a memorable visit that I had to Cuba in 2016. I visited the Latin American School of Medicine called ELAM, and when I was there, one thing that I found was Cuba, for a country with its embargo, has one of the best public health systems in the world today. So this is really important to understand that Cuba has been able to achieve this in spite of the embargo that it has faced. And one thing about this internationally recognized Cuban health system, it was the political will to provide healthcare to all segments of Cuban population. And it's based on prevention and primary healthcare. And here, gender played a role. There were lots of Cuban doctors who were women. There were lots of primary healthcare practitioners and community practitioners. And here I share a photograph from Rwanda. When I worked in Rwanda for nearly over 2 years and started the Green Hills Academy in Rwanda, one thing I noticed was women. And because of the genocide, there were two things that happened in Rwanda. The genocide, where about 800,000 people were killed, and there was a mass migration of 2 million people. But one of the things that impacted is it created this gender imbalance where there were more women in government. There were more women farmers. In Rwanda, women were also raped during the genocide. And after the Rwandan conflict, rape was considered a crime against humanity by the International Criminal Court. But as I was rebuilding, what I found that all of these women that you see in the photograph had experienced the genocide in different ways, but they were passionate about rebuilding their country. They had seen loss, they had seen flight, but they displayed a unique resilience. And that's what I want you all to think about in your discussions, is that women do display a unique resilience with whatever is thrown to them. A recent article in the 2016 WHO Bulletin was the Global Strategy for Women, Children, and Adolescent Health. And this covers 2016 to 30. And there were 3 examples: Survive, which is ending preventable deaths; Thriving, which is ensuring health and well-being; and Transforming is to expand enabling environments. And this strategy recognized that women, children, and adolescents are potentially the most powerful agents for improving their own health and achieving prosperous and sustainable societies. And I think this is really important. Another take-home message, that we have this global strategy. It is given to governments to implement this, but governments need to expand this enabling environment, because if you don't have an enabling environment, then it's problematic. And transforming societies requires participation, where everyone works together. There's co-production, there's community participation, and it means tackling the underlying social determinants of health and basically making it inclusive of underdeserved groups. Now, coming back to Australia, we have our Indigenous population. So in one of the richest countries in our world, our Indigenous indicators are appalling. But now there is affirmative action to change that. It's going to take a generation or so, but we are also doing that by government taking that. Another group is our asylum seeker and refugees who have come into our country because we have a special quota that we take in these. But because of their marginalization, because of their transition, because of the conflict that they have faced, it becomes really difficult for them. And to be transformative, participatory approaches in health require sharing of health services. So it's like individual and community capabilities to participate, people-centered health services, and social accountability. And here I want to bring you, so all of this, I'm giving you a historical context. You had 1946, the WHO Charter for Health, 1978, the Alma-Ata Declaration for Health, and in 1986, there was the Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion, where it is the process of enabling people to improve their health, to building strong public health policy, creating, supporting, and enabling environments, and strengthening community services. It's a capability approach, and this is really important. So within Australia, we have health promotion foundations linked to the Department of Health. So for the creation of health, we require social and physical environments that are comprehensible, meaningful, manageable. We require a common vision, a healthy society, a low criminal conviction rate, low teenage pregnancy, high educational attainment, and being economically active. Like, people want to feel productive and part of society. We have huge problems with teenage pregnancy in our Indigenous populations, but the moment there is conflict, the moment there's displacement, Again, there's an increase in teenage pregnancy. And this is something that really needs to change and needs a concerted effort. Yeah? We also have to actually look at the health deficit approach, which focuses on problems, needs, and deficiencies. But we have to actually move from a health deficit approach, because then it becomes people actually being passive recipients. And people shouldn't be passive recipients. They should actually be co-designers in their own abilities. You know? Another thing is an asset focus, where we look at economic assets, environmental assets, social networks, and personal sense of control. And here I would like to share a little bit of what COVID pandemic has done globally for the last, say, 13 months since January of last year. The impacts have been global. You know, you have more than 1 million people who have been killed, who have died because of the pandemic. We've been health systems that have been stretched. But there's been a gendered impact to this. And one of the gendered impact is where there's gender and violence, and where women cannot leave their home to access support. And actually people have come forward. Governments have come forward to see how they can address this in lockdowns. You know, the other problem has been the care responsibility has fallen on the women when she's at home, where she has to possibly work online or work, and there are children who are at school. You had children all over the world who were at home, and you had educational institutions closed, you know, and we have seen an increase. And this has led to inequalities, because what happens when there's no connectivity? What happens where there's not enough devices for people? What happens where there is no access or no training? This has led to these inequalities that COVID-19 has highlighted in different ways, you know. But on another side, COVID-19 has also highlighted that countries that were ruled by women, you have Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, you had Angela Merkel in Germany, you had some of the Scandinavian women leaders, you had the Prime Minister of Taiwan, and they came together to actually implement health policies and social isolation measures and public health measures that have proven to be much more effective. Although with the second wave, third wave, and in some countries, fourth wave, that has proved problematic. I wanted to share very quickly a framework for the social determinants of health. And this underlines health, gender, young people, and people's livelihoods. You have globalization on one side and health systems on one side, but you have the socio-economic and political context. You have the structural determinants, you have the intermediary determinants, and then you have the biological processes, which are only one part. So our socio-economic and political context plays a critical part in our health and well-being. And I think you will agree with me over there. The structural determinants, income, education, gender, ethnicity, and aging all play a part. In countries like India, where there's the caste system in place, you have marginalization that goes on. In countries like Australia, where you have our indigenous population, there it plays an important role too, the structural determinant. And where there are cultural contexts, where ethnicity, one's ethnicity is problematic, then that also impacts you. Now, closing the gap is social justice is a matter of life and death. It affects the way people live, and basically it has consequences for illness and premature death. And what do we look at now? We look at in wonder as life expectancy and good health continue to increase in some parts of the world, and in alarm as they fail to improve in others. So it goes without saying that after the Millennium Development Goals and the start of the Sustainable Development Goals, we made significant progress here. And in a country like Australia, the actual living, the people live till their late 80s. But our own indigenous population lived 20 years lower. But certain countries have gone backward. And this is problematic because this should not have happened. And then we have transnational healthcare, which uses community-based approaches, recognizes the lived experiences of people, understands the socioeconomic environment and the social determinants. And now I will take you all to the National Women's Alliances, the Australia model that we have in Australia. So the 6 alliances represent women's organizations. They present the views, voices, and issues of Australian women in particular, especially those who are from marginalized or disadvantaged groups. The alliance sits within the Office for Women with the federal government. So it's funded through them. And that's an important one. Now, if you look here at the 6 women's alliances, they are Economic Security for Women, Equality Rights Alliance, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Women, the Harmony Alliance, the Australian Women Against Violence Alliance, and the National Rural Women's Coalition. So one of the things that these alliances do is to promote gender equality for well-being and health. And they work together from across Australia to share information, identify issues, and to identify solutions. But they actively engage Australian government on policy issues so that the government is better informed and there is a dialogue between women and government. And that's what needs to happen at the national level, that they need to be a strong coalition of women's alliances that inform government policy. And these were started in 1999, so they are now about 20 years old. They are funded, as I say, by the government on a 3-year cycle. And the alliance model is high-level activities, and then it also includes measurable and achievable outcomes. There is a funding agreement that is with the government and the women's alliances. And basically, as president of Australian Graduate Women, we participate in 2 or 3 of the women's alliances. We nominate key issues for that particular year and what would be the funding mechanisms that we could have. And there are work plans and progress reports that are done. But one of the things that I would actually like to talk to you all about is the economic security for women. Of all the alliances, the economic security for women is most effective because one of the things that Beijing 25 agreed is that for more women's voices and young women to take part in national issues. But one of the things that when women are not economically empowered, it actually impacts the health of themselves and of their families, and then in return to their communities. And that is why economic security for women is so very important. So basically, one thing that we have is the Gender Statistics Advisory Group, the Gender Indicators Group. And one of the things that I'd like to share is that the government funds what is known as the Time Use Research Survey. What is the Time Use Research Survey? Is the amount of time that women take to do work for caring, work at home, work in their households and in their communities that does not have an economic component. And that actually needs to be measured because it's a vital and important component. And we have this in Australia called the Time Use Survey. We use these, so 2021, the government, we have received funding to have the Time Use Survey that will be rolled out. We have regional roundtables in every country. But then we have Equality Rights Alliance, which is the Women's Voices for Gender Equality. And we have, it looks at women's leadership, recognition of women's diversity. And it looks like basically also where young women can participate in equality rights. And it believes that the advancement of women and the achievement of equality are matters of fundamental human rights. And they use a range of methods to consult and engage with women. Now, I'd like to share some important statistics here. 1 in 3 women in Australia has experienced violence since the age of 15. 1 in 3 women have been sexually harassed since the age of 15. women are more likely to live below the poverty line. And in a wealthy country like Australia, that's problematic. And one of the increasing areas of homelessness is among older women. On average, women retire approximately with half the level of retirement savings, what you would call superannuation or provident fund. And women spend twice as much time on unpaid work. Women in Australia make up between 26 to 30% of all federal parliament, and women account for just 21% of sources directly quoted in news articles. So what do we need? We need feminist movements that are critical drivers of social transformation for equality. So basically, now I'd like to talk about some of the work that they have done. So they have looked at housing, and they have looked at affordable housing for all women. They have a young women's advisory group. Then they have an international engagement for gender equality. They have mind the gap policies, and there is other work and past work that women have done. Yeah? And one thing, as I'm ending, I'd like to say is that we need in each country gender responsive budgeting, so that how gender can be budgeted. And I know that Vibhuti Patel must have talked to you all about it yesterday, but this is an important consideration, and governments need to be sensitive about that. But at the same time, governments need to include gender mainstreaming, and there has to be comprehensive data collection at the national level. I'd like to here talk a little bit about the Millennium Development Goals, which took place between 2000 and 2015. And there were several of these 8 goals. There were at that time 8 goals. And number 3 was promoting gender equality. Number 4 was reducing child mortality. Number 5 was improving maternal health. And all of this was linked to gender and health. We made progress, but we still have a long way to go. Yeah? And in 2015, there was the Agenda for Sustainable Development, where there's 17 sustainable targets and goals. So here, when you look at the sustainable goals from 2015 to 2050, you see goal number 1 is no poverty. And this is linked, again, gender dimension of poverty. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 5, gender equality. Number 4, quality education, where many children, many young women are not able to go to secondary school. Yeah? Then we have reducing decent work and economic growth. But we have huge numbers of migrant workers in low-level migrant work. So you have the domestic workers throughout the world. You have other workers working in many parts of the world, maybe in construction and all of that, where there isn't decent work. So a lot of these are interrelated. Yeah? So we talked about the global strategy, and one is having a national gender equality plan, which will bring together policies and initiatives to address gender equality, to improve health, because there's the social determinants. And when I talked about the Photo Voice project with refugee women that I undertook from 2015 and 2017, and that culminated in a traveling exhibition, we gave women cameras to capture their lives in Western Australia, and under the themes of environment, under the themes of families, under the themes of livelihoods. And it was interesting what they came up with. One of the main important things that they came up was safety and security. The other thing that they came up with was family and importance of families. And I think this, for women and the health and well-being of women, is really important. One of the things that is happening with the SDG is the partnership for success. We have people, we have prosperity, we have peace, partnership, and the planet. And this is something that is happening all over the world, that we really need a partnership so that we do not disadvantage some countries and some populations. Yeah? And finally, transforming societies and transforming women in societies requires participation, including communities working together with health services to reach health goals, termed co-production. Community participation is a vital element of a human rights-based approach to education and health. And this means tackling and underlying social determinants that impact equality, and especially gender equality. And it is inclusive of underdeserved groups, and it's also a fundamental principle of equitable education and health. And I would like to end by the words of Jane Goodall and Leme Gwapwe. Jane Goodall worked with the chimpanzees in Tanzania, and I heard her speak in 1996, and she mentioned that we have the power to take informed action. Only if we understand can we care. Only if we care will we help, and only if we help shall all be saved. So it's really important for all of us to work together. And then Lame Gwapwe was from Sierra Leone, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize a few years ago. And she said, when women gather, great things happen. You know? Now, as women, as educators, as researchers, as clinicians, as academics, do we have the capacity to make a difference and have a translational impact and work towards improving lives? So I'll leave you with these thoughts, and I'm happy to either take any questions or go ahead with the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. First and foremost, we would like to congratulate and acknowledge your contribution, the amount of work, the amount of dedication and efforts that you have shown and contributed in not only for your personal growth as well as the societal growth. I would just like to summarize. Dr. Jaya Dantas has shared her experience in the field of research related to health sector. She spoke about requirements for the creation of health and health deficit approach for improving gender health. She explained how the COVID pandemic has resulted in the inequality where women are more affected. Ma'am also threw light on the framework for social determinants of health, how to close the gap of health equality through action on social determinants of health. She passionately spoke about National Women's Alliance in Australia, which represent women's organization. She also told about Equality Rights Alliance in Australia. She shared some important statistics with regard to women in Australia and work they have done to improve the status of women. Ma'am also pondered on and reflected on gender budgeting as an important consideration and should be implemented by the government, where ma'am has given few insights into how we can bring about economic security for women. National plans. The gist that ma'am gave us is the health and well-being with respect to gender is the key, and we all need to ponder upon it. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was pleasure having you with us. We have the next speaker for our today's session, Dr. Anshumala Shukla-Kulkarni. Ma'am, good morning and welcome to Online International Conference. And thank you for accepting our invitation. I would just like to give a little introduction about Dr. Anshumala Shukla-Kulkarni. She is a consultant gynecologist currently associated with Kokila Bain Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital and looks after the laparoscopic and robotic surgery department. She fortunately realized her aspiration to be a doctor. After her MD in gynecology from the prestigious KEM hospital, she has specialized in minimal access surgery, that is laparoscopic and hysteroscopic surgery. The advances in laparoscopy has revolutionized gynecological surgery. Advanced technology and better surgical techniques have improved outcomes for them. Hence, she made a conscious decision to practice gynecological and minimal access surgery exclusively. Her endeavor is to provide the best that exists in the field to all women. Her mantra in life is to be the best wherever she is and whatever she does. She doesn't give up easily. It can be done, it will be done. The work she does and the satisfaction she gets from her patients keeps her going. She has 17 years of experience to her credit. She has received many fellowships and numerous awards and honors. She has received the Outstanding Young Achiever Award for Minimal Access Gynecology at Western Zone and National Level Junior Chamber International Award in 2013. She was voted as Mumbai's top doctor in 2013 by International Innovation Surgery. She was also voted the top doctor in 2016. She has 5 international and 3 national publications to her credit. It's a pleasure to have you with us, ma'am. We are looking forward to listen from you.
Yes, thank you so much for the introduction, Gupna. It's indeed a pleasure for me to speak on something. Of course, like I said to you, I have, like you said, I am a laparoscopic surgeon, gynecologist, but performing only laparoscopic minimal access surgeries. And, when I was asked to speak on gender and health, I think it was something that kindled in me that why I should take that opportunity, because most of our talks are all scientific, based on science and surgeries and diseases. But often in outpatient departments, when we see our women coming in and they have their own set of problems, sometimes you see them either being supported and well taken care of by the family and being very aware and getting the best out of what is possible. And sometimes it becomes our duty as doctors to be able to steer them towards what is the good thing for them, because often they have either been neglecting themselves in terms of their health, or because of a certain amount of gender bias and lack of family support, they've actually not seeked out help at the correct time. And then it becomes an onus and a responsibility for me as a doctor to help them go towards what's correct for them. And there are so many stories that I hear every day, so many stories, and so many people I come across. And I think, yes, this awareness of why gender would be specifically important in terms of health needs to be highlighted. And let me just start my presentation. I'd like to share my screen and speak to you today about...
1 minute, ma'am. Technical team, please make ma'am the co-host. Yes, ma'am, you can share the screen.
Yes, please. Right. So is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. You can go on slideshow, ma'am.
Just give me a second. Okay,
Sure.
it's just loading up. Just give me a second, right? So, all right. I'm just going to take 1 minute more. Just give me a second. Right. So all this while it was open. I don't know what has happened now.
Ma'am, if it is open, then you share screen.
No, I'm aware. I'm aware. I did share the screen, but the moment I put up my
PPT.
Yeah, it kind of just hanged. So give me a second. I'm here now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Great, excellent. So, right. So we're going to talk about gender and its implications on health as we go forwards in our day-to-day life. So the question here, of course, is why would we think of gender specific to health? Beginning with the COVID-19 pandemic, that itself told us a disparity about how gender is actually being affected by the COVID-19. There was a direct impact and an indirect impact upon women because of this pandemic. The direct impact, of course, was, as we all know, women, thanks to their estrogen, which is there in their system, did not have very serious infections. The rate of mortality among women with COVID-19 infections was far lesser than the men. This could have been because of perhaps less amount of comorbidities that they would be having, but mainly the estrogen was known, proposed as one of the reasons why COVID-19 did not affect these people as much. However, there were other indirect impacts of the COVID-19, and this was one time where we felt that probably a women's exclusive was a good thing to be. The indirect effects, of course, meant that majority of us healthcare workers who are frontline workers are now being exposed to the COVID-19 far more. So as we all know, across the globe, women are at the front in terms of nursing staff, in terms of doctors who were dealing with COVID pandemic across healthcare workers. All of these were generally women, and men were generally posted in more of managerial posts. So it's across the world. We know that there were more women who were actually being the frontline workers taking care of COVID pandemic patients. There were higher instances of people losing work. So of course, women, if it was left to a fact that they had to manage house and childcare without any help and support, it was often the woman who was looked upon to give up her work or give up her job as the bread or as the income earner and take care of the house rather than take care of her own professions. That was always the one, she was the one who was giving the sacrifice at that point of time. And there were a lot of instances where if a woman had a problem at that particular point of time, it was always downgraded and said to be tolerated and let it be, because we did not want to step out and seek help. Did not want to visit a hospital because of the scare of the COVID pandemic. And a lot of women, there have been, we have seen cases of patients who did not come to us for months because they had some bleeding issues and turned out that they had actually waited upon a cancer which had grown and spread to other parts just because they didn't seek time at help, which has been a very difficult time in terms of the COVID pandemic. So we all know that women are considered super moms, and we deal with everything that can possibly be dealt with across at our places at home. And does gender actually matter? So does gender actually make any difference to our health? Yes, there is a genetic predisposition for all of us. So as women, there are certain disadvantages that we all carry, which are specific to us as females. And some of them, the more common cancers that are seen are the breast cancer, cervical, ovarian, and uterine cancer, which are of course very, very unique to a woman. Breast cancer is very rare in men, very rare in men, but very commonly seen in breast. It is one of the leading cancers seen in women across India and the world. Next comes the cervical, ovarian, and uterine cancers, which are specific for women as well. Then comes the other non-malignant conditions, which women specifically would be dealing with. One of them being endometriosis. Now, endometriosis is a silent disease. It's a disease that causes devastating pain, devastating consequences to women's health, but is often undiagnosed for almost 7 years after the first symptom arises, simply because it is not seen very well in all diagnostic tests and not recognized very easily with women. And women are always put down with those symptoms of pain to be said that they're either high maintenance or this is just a pain that you need to deal with. There is no need to seek help. Just take a painkiller or just bear with it, but don't take anything, don't do anything. And that's one very specific disease which actually gets misdiagnosed and missed among women, young girls, because they think that pain is something that women are supposed to live with. Osteoporosis, again, a very silent killer seen among elderly women. Here again, genetic predisposition matters. There are women who are more predisposed to developing osteoporosis, especially thin and lean people. And they lack of estrogen, which happens to women at the age of 50-55, makes them especially prone to developing osteoporosis more commonly than men would actually develop. A lot of our autoimmune diseases, lupus, anticoagulant, these are all more common among women. And it's also depression. So depression is again something that women go through. You could put it down to variation in hormones, you could put it down to their sensitive nature, but we have found that women do have more depression as compared to men. Having said that, the rate of suicide is far higher in men than it is in women. So that just shows that women have a better coping capacity and are able to talk more rather than men are able to. And migraines are also particularly more common among women. Going forwards, I was talking about cancer incidence. As you can see here, the cervix cancer is now climbing up to become the #1 cancer that affects women across all ages in India. A lot of socioeconomic data is involved in increasing the incidence of cervical cancer. Then what causes cervical cancer and why would a woman basically develop it? How do you test for it and what do you do if you have it? The etiology or the cause of cervical cancer essentially is an infection with a virus, which is called the human papilloma virus. This is always sexually transmitted. It has over 100 types and a persistent infection with this virus. If this virus affects you and stays inside your system for longer than 10 years, it is known to cause cervical cancer. And it's a very peculiar thing which happens to women, often undiagnosed because they would have some vaginal discharge, some amount of foul smelling discharge, some amount of irregular bleeding, which are often ignored. And therein, patients who could have been detected at an early or a pre-cancerous stage come to you when the stage is already a stage 2 or 3 requiring radiation with very poor outcomes. So that's where, again, it is a specific gender related thing. The risk factors are usually earlier intercourse, multiple sexual partners, multiple childbirths, other sexually transmitted disease, immunosuppression, and HIV infection. It's quite common. In fact, women are the ones who are more susceptible because the surface area that is involved in developing the HPV virus is more commonly seen in women. Men do also have HPV related cancers, but the incidence is not as high as it is in women. The most highlighted part about this thing is that it is a preventable thing. It is something that can be detected at an early age. It is often ignored and not looked at simply because of ignorance from the woman or no access to regular health checkups, pap smears, which are required to detect it at an early age. Only those who have a persistent infection, who have not taken treatment for longer than 10 years, are the ones who actually developed a CIN1, which is early pre-cancer or actually a cervical cancer that is there. A lot of HPV types that are present. I spoke to you about endometriosis, another very peculiar thing that women can develop is endometriosis. Here again, you'll find that patients come with pain. So again, women and menstrual period and pain is something that is very synonymous. We've all learned to ignore menstrual pain. In fact, there are mothers who come in with their daughters who come in to tell us that their daughter has never taken any medication and she just bears with it. She's fine. She's strong enough and she bears with it as if it is like a badge of honor to be worn and said that it's okay if the girl has pain, but I would rather not allow her to have any painkillers. Now that's not a good idea at all, because if this pain, which is unnaturally high, going on for more than 2 days, could actually mean an underlying endometriosis, and this endometriosis can actually cause severe symptoms in the patient, leading to infertility, inability to have children, and a chronic pelvic pain as well. So endometriosis is not just a bad period. Remember, it is extreme pain which is not in line with a normal menstrual cramp that you would get at the first 1 day of the period cycle. It affects psychologically a woman over the years, where she's not able to have socially get out of her house because she would be scared of the pain. She's unable to do her routine activities. She requires often injectable painkillers, and the problem here is that it's often patronized. It's often told to women that, look, the pain will come out of it. Once you get married, your menstrual pain will go away. Once you have children, your pain will go away. But that's not true, because endometriosis pain just does not go away. If it starts off, unless it's treated correctly, the pain is only going to keep increasing with time, leading to debilitating pain, affecting general psychology, entire well-being, your work output, everything gets affected And it's important to go ahead and see a gynecologist who can understand what this pain is all about. See, often it is undiagnosed because there is no specific method of diagnosing endometriosis. Ultrasound will only 60% of times show you endometriosis. 40% of times there'll be nothing that shows that there is endometriosis or a growth of this uterus lining anywhere inside the pelvis. What matters here is how the gynecologist recognizes your symptoms, how the examination is performed, and how the treatment is given to get you relief from these symptoms. So it's important to see a correct person to get a diagnosis done. So if any one of you has pain, don't think of yourself as being somebody who's difficult and high maintenance, who's always complaining of pain with periods. There is probably a very serious problem that needs to be looked at and treated. There are enough amount of celebrities across the world who are living with endometriosis, who speak very openly about it. A lot of foundations available that do a lot of activities in it. Even in India, there are almost 26 million Indian women who are actually having endometriosis, which is a very high number. And if only we were able to recognize these girls who are less than 18, who come with early stage of endometriosis, and a correct treatment was offered to them, then you would not do it. So I think here the gender bias comes in, because women menstrual pain is something which is supposed to be acceptable. We are supposed to accept the fact that a woman would have pain with periods, and we are supposed to bear with it, often as a badge of honor, to say I don't even take a painkiller with my periods, which is not the correct way of thinking for us, and it's important to recognize it. Coming on to the next thing, which peculiarly happens to women, and I want to talk specifically about this, is because menopause is a phase in life which will come uniquely only to women, as a gender. This is the time when there is a reduction in your hormones and loss of estrogen, progesterone coming in from your ovary. We all know that we have two hormones, the estrogen and progesterone hormones, which keep us like what we are. They allow us to produce eggs, our ovulation, period cycle, everything depends on how the ovary is functioning and giving you the hormones. Estrogen hormone specifically is very important to keep your bone health in place, your heart health in place. It allows you to function normally, have good skin health, good hair health, lot of vitality, energy. All of these things are dependent on estrogen and progesterone. And unfortunately, the way we are made in nature, these things just stop at the age of 50, 55. And then what happens is a series of things that women go through, which nobody understands. And it's again, a very peculiar thing I see in the outpatient, where you would have a woman who's around 48, 49 years of age coming in and complaining of some palpitations and anxiety, loss of sleep. And the children would not recognize that and would say, Mummy is just unnecessarily shouting at us all the time. Why does she keep doing this all the time? Or the husband would say, I really don't know how to deal with this woman anymore. She's all the time screaming, and she's all the time crying. What is wrong with her? But this is a very, very genuine issue with that woman. It is something she's going through, and all of us lack to recognize it at that age. Between 45 to 55 is the time when this hormone pattern change happens in all women. And if we are taking the initiative, we must make sure we educate the younger lot, the children, as well as the spouses, to know, to recognize this, be supportive, be helpful, understand why this is happening, and allow the woman to take help at this particular age with supplements, medications, which will allow her to get over this phase. Otherwise, this can actually become quite a devastating time, because these are all the things that happen to you when you become menopausal. So you start having itchy and dry skin all the time. You become very irritable. You're all the time screaming, shouting. You don't like anything anymore. You have no motivation left to do anything anymore. You have perspiration, sweating, so you are always uncomfortable even if you're sitting in an air conditioning place. You're very tired all the time. You feel bloated. There is a lot of gain of weight that is happening. You tend to forget things, so you don't tend to remember things. Like, you don't know why you went to the next room to do something. You just can't remember it. You tend to forget why you were doing something, and suddenly there's a loss of train of thought, and you don't know what happened here. And you start losing confidence because you don't know why this was happening to me. Again, these are all things that if there is no support around a woman at that particular point of view, and specifically to women, this is something they go through at this particular age, which requires to be taken care of and dealt with glove hands. And often they are termed as psycho, wherein either the husband or the children will come up to say that she's just going crazy. I don't know why she keeps crying at the top of the head. But it's a genuine issue that we all tend to miss. So what are the symptoms that you would look for if a patient was menopausal? Is you look for hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal symptoms. Sometimes they have urinary problems, leak of urine, incontinence. They may be having fatigue, memory loss, and weight gain, wrinkles, or excess amount of hair growth in other areas. Now, two other important things that happen to you with menopause is that you may have osteoporosis, so taking calcium supplementation at this age is very important, and making sure that you reduce your risk of developing heart issues. Women after the age of 55 are at risk of developing heart issues as much as a man would be, and in fact, they tend to have a very different symptoms of heart attack as compared to men, which are often ignored, and therefore mortality of women after 55 years of age with heart problems is more than men would have it. So here again, something that is specific to women just after 50 years of age, but often ignored and not looked at very carefully. After 50 is also when you would find patients coming with ovarian cancer. Now, this is something that gets missed almost routinely, because ovarian cancer has absolutely no symptoms. Unless you are someone who's doing regular checkups, you will often miss the slight symptoms of bloating, the slight symptoms of some kind of swelling in the stomach, a general tiredness that is there, and you may not actually detect the presence of an ovarian cancer, which is usually detected with the help of an ultrasound. So getting an ultrasound done, if you have a history in the family of cancer, making sure you're well checked up every year is very, very important. And you eating a low-fat diet always helps. Uterus lining cancer, again, will cause abnormal bleeding. And this is something that, again, gender specific would be missed, because women are often told as a myth that when you are approaching menopause, you're bound to have irregular periods. You're going to have irregular periods, you're going to have heavy periods, and you are going to, it's okay, just ignore it. It's going to get better once the periods will just stop. Yes, you will have irregular periods with your menopause when you're coming close to menopause, but there cannot be a very heavy bleeding that goes on for 10-15 days with excess amount of clots. That's not normal bleeding either. So again, here, if there is a change in your pattern of bleeding, don't listen to old wives' tales. Don't assume it's normal. It's always better thing to just get an ultrasound done and have it checked out. The risk factors are estrogen exposure and PCOD, use of HRT. Vulval cancer, usually seen in people who are more than 70-75 years of age, where there's an intense itching that is seen. And again, here, this is something which is getting missed. So itching in an elderly woman, you would say probably fungal infection. Go to the pharmacist, get a cream, which is an antifungal cream, and apply it, and just leave it at that and not think anything more about it. However, this could very well be a cancer of the vulva, which can spread quite rapidly, and if not detected early, can actually be quite with a lot of rapid spread. So here again, if there is an itching, see, it's basic examination. It's basic going for a check to keep your symptoms in perspective and give heed to your symptoms. Rather than looking at these things and saying these are things that generally happen to women, it's okay. That's not how our attitude should be. Our attitude should be more towards, if there is a symptom, check it out, make sure it is normal before you assume things about women, that it's, this is okay and this may happen, and we don't really need to do much about it at all. Okay. So like I said, heart attack is a leading killer of American women. So can you imagine that even though we feel that women are protected with estrogen till they're 50 years of age, that becomes a more common symptom of death in women after 55 years of age. And that's because the symptoms of heart attack are not typical chest pain and pain radiating down the arm. This could be throat pain, it could be a cough, it could be sleepless nights, it could be just acidity related, very different symptoms, jaw pain even, which are all different symptoms of heart attack which women will go through, which are not recognized as a symptom of a heart issue, and they often come back with the poor response to their symptoms, therefore leading to heart attack in them. It's possible for us to change how we live as a woman and keep this whole passage of going into menstrual reproductive age to a menopausal age to be as good, as happy, and as cheerful as possible if we take care of these symptoms and educate. And as we all know, women can only age up to 40, and we don't really go beyond that. So we would like to remain there at this age for as long as we can. Then there are some things which are not because of our genes. So all of this that we spoke about was because either the female system was made in such a way that we have these problems, or there was a genetic predisposition because of which specifically females would have these kind of problems. But there are certain other problems which are totally man-made. They are not because we were susceptible or because our genes made us have this, but it was because of our habits, our society, and a culture that made us have these issues. And what these are essentially anemia. I think one of the biggest problems across the world in women, where lack of iron in their diet, lack of proper antenatal care when they are pregnant, and general availability of help is what causes anemia in girls, especially young girls, pregnant women, very, very common. Sexually transmitted diseases, even pelvic inflammatory disease, gonorrhea, syphilis, you are looking at HIV, hepatitis B, all of these are specifically there because we didn't take enough care, or we had lack of care or lack of the choice to be able to take care of ourselves in this particular respective things. Then of course pregnancy. Now why would pregnancy be a problem? Because antenatal care again is not accessible, and gender specific women are the ones who have to take the life forwards in 9 months inside their uterus, and lack of good care during pregnancy itself can be a major issue or a major impact of health in women. And PCOD, and the reason why I speak of polycystic ovarian disease or PCOD is because it's like an epidemic. We are seeing COVID as a pandemic, but I am seeing PCOD as an epidemic among young women through the last so many years. Young teenage girls who just started their periods will come to you with irregular periods. They will come to you with weight gain. They will come to you with hair growth, hair loss, and a very bad lifestyle, a very poor lifestyle. And again, this is something which is specific to girls. They are the ones who would show these symptoms, which are having long-standing impact. Because if you develop polycystic ovaries at a very young age, you will find that you're developing diabetes at a early age. You can develop endometrial cancer at a very early age. It becomes difficult to get pregnant. It can cause a lot of psychological issues because there is a excess amount of hair growth, loss of hair, lot of weight gain. These are things which young teenage girls find it unacceptable, and therefore the reason to go in for eating disorders or psychological disturbances can happen in these women. There are a lot of things about how cervical cancer affects them. 40% of women across the world, this is WHO findings, that across the world 40% women are anemic in pregnancy, which means 40% of us are either not taking enough iron supplements or not having the access to good food during pregnancy, causing anemia. And FOXY, that is Federation of Obs and Gynae Society of India, is a body of gynae societies across India. We do have a program where we are talking about 12 tak, which means bringing your hemoglobin to 12 gram percent, which is a normal gram. So we have a program going on wherein we tend to go into the communities and teach why it's important to take iron supplements, especially for young girls when they start menstruating. If the bleeding is very heavy, they should seek help to make sure they are not the women. The young girl of 13, 14 years should not be bleeding more than 5-6 days with very heavy bleeding. Treatment needs to be taken at that point of time. Their diet should change to include a lot of iron-rich food in their diet. Maybe a few iron supplements are also required so that their iron stores start building up at that particular young age itself, going on forwards to when they are get ready for childbearing. So these things are there, and FOXY has a Bharatak as a program that goes on to educate women about the need for keeping their iron or hemoglobin level at 12 gram percent.
Excuse me, ma'am. We'll
yes.
wind up in 2 minutes, ma'am. Is it okay?
Oh,
because we have the next session, like the next speaker. So if in 2 minutes you can wind up, ma'am.
Yeah, sure, of course. So iron deficiency is most common, and we are also looking at 810 women who die every day from preventable causes related to pregnancy and childbirth. So again, here quality antenatal care makes a lot of difference. It's important to make sure that we prevent unintended pregnancies. These are again things which are gender specific. HIV does affect women across, and this is women target of how many women across the world are affected with HIV. So it's important to make sure that we are allowing our women to have contraceptive methods available for them where they can plan their pregnancy and prevent sexually transmitted diseases as well. So it's our bodies and it's my choice whether I want to get pregnant or not, whether I choose to get pregnant, when, where, and how. And that should pretty much be there. Like I said, PCOD again, it's all about taking care of our hormones. If you see here, the amount of insufficient physical activity, almost 43% women between the age of 29 and 59 do not have sufficient physical activity. It's a WHO thing which says that we just don't have enough physical activity to be able to keep PCOD under control. So health equity monitor is a WHO method of looking at where we are at. This is our life expectancy after the age of 60, where you find that only India lags behind in terms of life expectancy. What are the things that we can do to stop this? A few things: when you're a young girl, get your pap smears done and a yearly examination. When you're between 40 and 49, mammography start off, it should be done regularly. When you're between 50 and 64, you would want to add your ultrasound mammography and a yearly examination. Bone mineral density test, thyroid screening, glucose testing are also required. It's possible to reduce our aging and reduce its adverse effects on women's well-being and long-term health. So what can change? We can give opportunities to women to be able to access healthcare as routinely as they should. We should be able to offer the possibility of men to be able to share the workload at home so that they are able to make time for themselves better. Give them some time to focus on self, pay attention to their symptoms. If they come to you with pain, make sure that you are giving heed to that symptom of discharge or pain and seeking help as far as possible. So it's everyone's health is a priority, no matter who it is, which woman it is in your household, and you must ask them how they are. So I will endure, I will flourish, and I'm still beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Anshumala Shukla-Kulkarni. Madam began her session with the current situation of the pandemic effects on gender, particularly in relation with women. Ma'am explicated the indirect effects it has on women in healthcare sector in general, and particularly in general in the society. Also, it has its effects on women especially. The genetic dispositions of women were highlighted. The diagnosis and the measures for these were focused on. Thank you, ma'am, for providing us a medical perspective of gender and health. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Through the Education 2030 Framework for Action, SDG 4 aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And SDG 5 to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The Education 2030 Agenda, UNESCO, recognizes that gender equality requires an approach that ensures that girls and boys, women and men, not only gain access to and complete education cycles, but are empowered equally in and through education. Yes, the theme for the next session is education and gender. We couldn't have a better person who has been with us throughout for this international conference. We have Professor Molly Kuruvila from Department of Women's Study, University of Calicut. And I take this opportunity to acknowledge all the support as a collaborator that ma'am has extended to us for organizing this conference. Professor Molly Kuruvila is the founding director and professor at Department of Women's Study, University of Calicut. She is the editor of the Handbook of Research on Gender Mainstreaming and Women Empowerment, IGI Global, California, published in June 2020, in which 30 authors from 7 countries have contributed their research findings. She has also authored many books and a gender training manual titled Towards Sustainable Development, published by the Canada-based NGO Save a Family Plan. Molly ma'am is an advisor to Asian African Association for Women's Gender and Sexuality. She has served as a member and national resource person of the UGC National Consultative Committee for Capacity Building of Women Managers in Higher Education and has been the regional and the sub-regional coordinator of the same for 8 years. She has adorned several senior positions at the University of Calicut, like Director, UGC Academic Staff College Director, Institute of Tribal Studies and Research, and Chairperson of the University Complaints Committee that looks into cases of sexual harassment in the campus and affiliated colleges. Dr. Molly Kuruvila has over 80 research papers on various education and gender issues published as chapters in books and as articles in reputed peer-reviewed national and international journals. She has also completed several research projects in the area. She is an executive member of numerous research bodies and teachers' organizations throughout the country. She is also a member of the Board of Studies of Women's Studies at PG and MPhil levels in various universities. She also has affiliations to various Indian and foreign universities. She is a resource person of various government entities like the IMG, Social Welfare Department, Women's Commission, Women's Development Corporation, ICDS, Police Department, and various other bodies. With nearly 3 decades of teaching, research, and counseling experience, she contributes immensely to the scholarship of education and gender studies. She is actively involved in the gender sensitization of men and women at various levels and many spheres of public life. She has the credit of delivering more than 500 invited talks on various gender issues throughout the country. Indeed, a pleasure to have you, ma'am, with us. Over to you, Molly, ma'am, to throw light on education for gender mainstreaming in an interconnected world.
With the permission of the organizers, I would like to tell you that I should be excused to present my session after 12:30 because our National Commission for Women Chairperson Rekha Sharma is ready to join, and she is all the busy person, so we cannot afford her to wait for 2 more sessions.
Ma'am,
So, is it
yes,
possible to let her
yes,
come?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please, yeah.
Okay.
With your permission, Molly ma'am, and with the permission of the organizing committee members, may I request Ms. Rekha Sharma to unmute herself and also to start her camera on. A very, very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Ms. Rekha Sharma is the chairperson of National Commission for Women, and we all know, ma'am, the busy schedule that you have, and still you accepted our request to be here this morning. Thank you so much for that. Let me introduce you formally to our participants and to all the viewers on YouTube just now. Ms. Rekha Sharma assumed the charge of Chairperson, National Commission for Women on August 7th, 2018. If one takes a closer look at her style of working, the 2 distinct virtues that pop up are leadership spirit and willingness. If NCW is known for working round the clock for addressing women's issues, it is because of her pioneering efforts to be ever ready for women in need. NCW has been setting up new milestones under her leadership ever since she's been at the helm of affairs, with the latest being the Commission's campaign with the National Legal Services Authority on empowering women through legal services, especially hailing from remote areas of the country. Ms. Sharma has been an ardent advocate of molding the perspective of the society, and therefore the Commission regularly organizes state and national level competitions on women-related laws for students to bring them closer to the concept of gender equality. The Commission, under her leadership, has also developed legal awareness programs in collaboration with Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangatans for students of class 11th and 12th, and also for the students of central and state universities. Even during the extraordinary times of the pandemic, when the country was put under a lockdown, NCW, her leadership, stood apart with its quick measures to address the new challenges faced by women. The Commission, in her guidance, has launched a one of its kind WhatsApp helpline number for women, in addition to the robust complaint registration system, which was already in place. Keeping in line with her motive to make women independent and self-reliant, NCW, in partnership with Facebook and Cyber Peace NGO, launched a digital literacy and online safety program, which has so far trained tens of thousands of women to fight misinformation and cyber crimes, and aims to multiply its targets to manifolds in this year. NCW conducts several gender sensitization workshops for law enforcement authorities in collaboration with state police departments as well. She's constantly advocated for economic empowerment of women and has been organizing seminars around women-led entrepreneurship in collaboration with different universities with an aim to break gender stereotypes in the country. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being at the helm of affairs, for doing so much for women across India, across the world, for bringing them forward in all aspects of their lives. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you. So today we are talking about mental health of women during, first of all, good morning to everyone, all the eminent speakers and panelists. And I hope that I'll be listening to few of you after I speak, because learning from all of you is also very important. Where I'm sitting, I can't work without guidance from you people. In fact, I've learned so many things from people who are working at the helm of the society. That's why I could work the way I'm working today. So yes, today we are talking about the mental health of women, especially during the pandemic, and when they were facing domestic violence and other problems when the country was in the lockdown, and even after that, because of the pandemic, still the life is not normal. So first of all, let me tell you, the mental health thing is, as it is a very big issue in our societies, in Indian society. Uh, People are not aware of anything. They don't even think that there is a problem which is called mental health. They are not aware that there can be an issue with their health, mental health. So especially women, because they are not even aware of their physical health, what to talk about their mental health, because women who have got hemoglobin 2 or 3, they are also producing children. And I've seen, especially in the villages or in small towns, they don't give any priority to their own health, even the physical health. We have been, women of India are taught that they are the last priority in their families also, because they feed everybody in the family, and then they have their meals. They take care of everyone except themselves, and that's how now it's been. I think now is the time that we should talk about the mental health, because during the pandemic we have seen that women have suffered a lot of problem with their mental health. In NCW, when I started this helpline, WhatsApp helpline, we have seen in the second week of the lockdown that the cases of violence, domestic violence, were increasing with us, though the police says that the cases with them decreased, but with us, we have seen from second week itself, they started multiplying, and slowly now also we are getting like more than 3 times what we were receiving before the pandemic. So as when the pandemic happened, women were at home, and they are they are used to having their me time when husbands are not there, when family goes out for work, children are at school. But after the pandemic, what I saw, and when what we observed, that women were not only working for their household duties or their office work from home, they were also teaching their children, they were also taking stress of their husband's job, their husband's problems. Because in India we have that mindset कि आदमी अगर नाराज होता है तो वो पत्नी पर निकालता है, अगर हस्बैंड के पास सैलरी नहीं मिल रही है तो वो पत्नी पर निकालता है, अगर उसे कोई भी प्रॉब्लम है सो ही विल कम बैक टू हिज वाइफ एंड यू नो put all kind of stress on her. So that's what we saw in the pandemic also, because women were not getting any house help what they were receiving early, what they were getting earlier. They were working from home, they were teaching their children, and they were not allowed to go out. We all were sitting at home and they could not have their me time, and that's how that stress increased in their life. Um they were not being able to share with their families, because in small houses they can't even call their families, because everybody was present in those rooms and they were afraid of sharing their things. uh, mm, we even we started a campaign against mental health. In those days we started webinars, we started talking to the specialist doctors, and started Facebook live, where women sitting at home could listen to those things, how to take care of their mental health, whether they should go for yoga or listen to the music or write something, have that small little me time sitting at home, maybe 1 hour in a day, or if need be they should go to the specialist also. Because हम लोग कभी डॉक्टर की तो सोचते ही नहीं है, it is the I think last resort to go to the doctor. So we wanted even the medical help they should take, and we now we are starting talking about a counseling, a line, a 24/7 helpline where they can take help on mental health. So today also my member secretary is gone to the ministry to talk about it, and very soon hopefully we are going to start a mental health online this thing helpline, where women can speak to a specialist any time of the day and get the advice from these counselors, uh, which is I think is the need of the hour. Because now is the time that we should recognize that this is a problem, this is a real problem. Because unless you are mentally okay, mentally taking care of your thing, your mental health, you are not being, you won't be achieving what you want to in your work also, whether it is work in the offices or at home. I've seen that when the families were joined, this was taken care for, because the women could share with somebody, if she is not liking one person in the family, or if somebody is happening with her own husband, she could share with her sister-in-law, mother-in-law, mother, anybody. But nowadays, because there is no joint family or very few joint families are there, this is a problem which is now increasing. Even the social setup is like that we don't talk to each other. Even in one building we don't know who is staying next door. So society at whole can help each other if we have a close network. We always should have a very good backing of friends. We have to share it with friends, and we should not hesitate sharing our problems. uh, keeping our problems under folds, and I think is not a right thing, and not uh, you can't avoid things for long if you are keeping it at on your own. So we need to share with the society. If you are having problem, you need to share with the friends, and families should understand that and should understand and take care of a woman who is suffering mental problem. uh, Society is made of our families only, and if families are recognizing this such thing is there and helping a woman in the family, I think that will be a great thing. uh, Even working from home, that is also I have seen was a big problem during the pandemic, because the timing was like, if you're going to office you are going from 9 to 5, but if you're working from home you are even working at 6 o'clock. I've seen my daughters working till late night, and when children are there you have to take care of them also, and that also contributed to the multiplying problem of mental health in the women. That stress of losing job during the pandemic, that was also too much, and if you have seen the data, it shows that women lost more jobs than men after the pandemic and during the pandemic. So they were the first target when companies were laying off their workers. Women were the first target and they lost their jobs. That was also a big stress among women, because when a woman is earning her own money, that is a very, very big support for her. And when during the pandemic, as it is, the resources were less and they were losing job, that was a very big problem. And here I will say that these private companies, even when a woman is expecting and she needs her leave, they don't give her that 6 month leave, maternity leave, which the government has given, and they don't even hire women if she's married and about to expect or expecting, and they think that she is a burden to their company. That is also a big stress. And when people are listening to me, if today they are listening, they should I think take it in the consideration that women who are raising children are not burden, who are giving birth to children, they are not burden, they are contributing towards society. So we must think of their well-being. We must give them proper leave. We must give them creches in the offices so that they can get their children along and they can work properly. uh, Even working from home, they I've seen that sexual harassment, or you can say the cyber crime, also increased. It was very close, like um, we were working from home, everything was online, the meetings were happening at night also, and sometimes people don't know how to act online. They think that whatever they are wearing, they can come in the meeting, they can speak to their employee in whatever way, and that also contributed to the declining of mental health in the women. uh, I have talked about the problems, and now we have to find out the solutions. Solutions are that a close knit families, a good friend circle, family support, and giving them a 24 by 7 helpline. That is very important. And women themselves, I think women to women, we need to handhold each other. We must listen to each other. A woman can support another woman and hand her hold her hand properly. Only then I think the society will change. Otherwise, if you expect that we don't help each other and somebody else will come and help us, I don't think this is possible. Unless we help and we support each other, nobody else will support us. So my nara, you can say my nara is that a women can only help another woman, and we have to stand by each other if we want that these problems should go from our lives. We should first rise up and talk about it. unless we talk, nobody else will know that we are having a problem. And talking is the first step towards taking care of ourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, we will not be able to take care of our families also. My motto is पहले खुद को खुश करो और फिर सोसाइटी या फैमिली को खुश करो. तो अपने आप को खुश करने के लिए, whether it is if I like painting, if I like writing, if I like singing song or listening songs, or going out, sitting with friends, chilling out, I must do that for myself, for my health. And I think if we talk about all these things, things will change. With that, I would like to conclude my address. Thank you so much for inviting me here and giving me time to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and honoring the conference. Dr. Rekha Sharma, madam, she showcased the difficulties that a woman faced during the pandemic as regards to having a we time and the other mental dispositions which women face from family and society. Thank you, ma'am, for taking initiatives not only during the pandemic, but also as a policy maker. And of course, these 24/7 helpline surely will make a difference to the women where they can seek help. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your time with us.
Thank you so much. And I'm online and listening to the speakers.
Yes, ma'am, it's our pleasure that you will be there with us for more time.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Moving forward, yes, we have our very own Dr. Molly Kuruvila. We are indeed indebted to her to extend all the help and support from the back end, coordinating with us late night. And I have already introduced ma'am. So without taking much more time, I hand over the session to Molly ma'am.
Am I audible and visible?
Not visible, although your video is on, ma'am. Yeah, wait, I'll spotlight you, ma'am. Just a moment.
Ma'am, you are visible, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, hi everyone. Since yesterday morning, we have been discussing the various aspects of gender mainstreaming, especially in the context of the pandemic. Every resource person has touched the difficulties and the issues related to the pandemic. We were making faster strides towards gender equality when this pandemic broke out and things came to a standstill all of a sudden. And now we are facing the greatest setback to gender equality ever in history. Now, after almost a year, we have learned to live with COVID. And with the availability of the vaccine, we are all hopeful to move forward and compensate for the losses in the past 1 year. As we all know, there are three major forces that influence the developmental discourses of 21st century: the web or the ICT, the women, and the weather or global warming. It has become imperative to discuss the interconnectedness between ICT-facilitated education and gender empowerment. We know gender mainstreaming is the universally accepted strategy for attaining the goals of sustainable development. Since the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, they are all interlinked and interconnected, interdependent. We need to look into how the fourth goal of attaining quality and inclusive education, it contributes to the fifth goal of gender equality. Referring to gender equality, the Education for All 2030 Sustainable Development Goal Agenda says all girls and boys, women and men should have equal opportunity to enjoy education of high quality. Adolescent girls and young women who may be subject to gender-based violence, child marriage, early pregnancy, and a heavy load of household chores, as well as those living in poor and remote rural areas. They require special attention. We have discussed a lot more on the potentials of education and ICT in facilitating gender empowerment and social change. We have written long essays on it. We have presented numerous papers on it and discussed the scope in several platforms. And we are very thorough that education has always been considered as the best weapon for gender equality by equipping men and women with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes required to meet the challenges of gender mainstreaming. I reassure men and women with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Education instills the readiness for change in human minds, makes them more flexible, liberal, and develops balanced outlook in them. It contributes to physical and mental health. It increases productivity and employability of individuals. It helps to eradicate poverty and hunger and promotes peace, the rule of law. Education makes people respect each other, respect human rights. All these are popularly accepted facts, no doubt about it. Regarding the potentials of ICT, it has made the global village concept a reality and provided immense potentials for empowerment and emancipation of women and all sexual minorities, whether it be online education, online shopping, net banking, booking what you call e-tickets, accessing healthcare facilities, online marketing. In short, we can say ICT has given wings to women and sexual minorities across all sections of religion, class, caste, race, or ethnicity, or those having disabilities to overcome the centuries old restrictions imposed on them in various spheres and activities. For example, you just take this particular international conference. How many women? See, more than 200 women yesterday and today, they are participating in this international conference as delegates and as experts. We have Jaya Dantas from Australia, Shahana from Africa, Madhavi from US. All these people could come onto this platform. It was so easy. It is just because of ICT. And also, I know whenever we conduct international conferences, otherwise, in offline platforms, so many women make last minute excuses saying that the mother-in-law has fell down or the son or daughter is having so and so sickness or something. Or some of them are not permitted even to travel long distances. So much of issues, and women most often miss the opportunities to attend such programs. They have so much of family responsibilities. So ICT facilitates, it provides a platform for socializing with like-minded people in the social networking sites. And it provides them an opportunity to ventilate their suppressed feelings and issues. The social networking sites have offered women a space to voice their dreams and desires, and of course, dislikes, and also to proclaim to the world about their inner self, what they really are, what they really want. But as Madam Rekha Sharma pointed out, it has its own hidden dangers, of course, in the form of increasing cyber crimes if one fails to adopt proper cyber security measures. And that itself is a long story. Now, I would like to focus this presentation on whether the present ICT facilitated education system is effective enough in its role as an instrument to facilitate the expected social change of gender equality? If not, what are the major issues? How we could modify the present education system as a means for transformation? Also, we need to think how far inclusive and equitable is our education and ICT. Worldwide, in 2013, two-thirds of the 757 million adults aged 15 and over who were unable to read and write were women. It was in such a scenario that the Sustainable Development Goals were formulated in 2015 with the goal of inclusive, equitable, and quality education that will also promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And an additional thing, without leaving anyone behind. Anyone, any woman, any man, any boy or girl belonging to any area, any race, any class, any caste, having any disability, not leaving anyone behind. Now let us think to the question of whether education system is effectively fulfilling its potential for challenging the existing gender inequalities. The answer is a big no. Even the highly qualified boys and girls, they believe and sustain the traditional patriarchal mindsets of their elders, of their parents. The recent incident in Andhra Pradesh of India, where two adult daughters of 27 and 22 years, they were killed by own parents. The mother, she was a gold medalist and the principal of a higher secondary. The father, a PhD holder, educated college. They killed their daughters because of their superstitious beliefs that the girls will take a rebirth. Has education fulfilled its objectives? When several girls are attacked, raped, or killed, or subjected to acid attacks by their highly educated boyfriends for not consenting to marry them, has education fulfilled its objectives? In instances where the educated women fail to get employment or are prevented from taking up employment outside home, when employed women are denied control over their earnings, when the highly educated judiciary, it pronounces the skin contact is a must, it is mandatory in sexual harassment, can we say education has attained its objectives? No, it has lost its vision and mission. Definitely, education could produce so many people with high degrees. But its distant goals, its true objectives, they are not fulfilled. In the state of Kerala, which I represent, the God's own country, it is noted for its high standards of literacy and education. It has the labor force participation of women less than the national average. It has the highest number of women who attempt suicide, the highest number of women who take tranquilizers. Can we say education has contributed to empowerment in the real sense? When marriage and motherhood, they are still considered as the life goals of women. When the property rights are denied to daughters, even by educated parents. Education for gender equality, it becomes a myth. Several studies reveal how this education system is entrenched with gender bias at all levels. From its objectives in various dimensions, the objectives of education for boys and girls, it is different. Enrollment and retention rates, it's different. Choice of subjects, preference for technology and maths for boys, arts and humanities for girls, it is still there. Changes, of course, are there, but majority, in the case of majority of girls, this differential choice determined by their parents. The content of text, classroom practices like seating arrangements, differential separate rows for boys and girls, division of responsibilities among boys and girls, disciplinary practices, differential, co-curricular activities, the time and space for leisure or play in the schools and colleges. And what about administrative positions of educational institutions? We see lots of gender bias. The number of vice chancellors, the number of registrar, VC, controller of examination, the number of people in the decision-making bodies of academics, the number of people in our parliament, that I am not referring now, because I am to focus on education. So in the education system itself, it is entrenched with gender bias. Boys and girls never see role models or dream positions for women in the higher echelons of education system. Because whoever they see in the decision-making position of the college or university, they are all men. And they believe, oh, this decision-making, it is something that is to be done by men only. Women are not good at decision-making. According to the recent data from the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, dropout rates remain high for girls throughout the globe as girls struggle with gender disparities at every level of education. Here, my point of concern is that students in environment permeated with sexism, with a gender bias, they tend to develop value systems that are gender differentiated, and they carry these value systems into their adult life and become perpetrators of gender inequality. Now, what is the way forward? In the present socio-cultural setup, there are no sufficient role models for boys and girls that depict egalitarian democratic relationships within the families. They see the mother respecting father, the mother teaching and training them to respect the father, but they rarely see the father openly respecting the mother. In how many Indian families we see the situation of father respecting mothers? So the misconceptions learned by the children from the family need to be corrected when they reach the school, and that too at the very beginning of school days. So the point that I want to put forth, when the protection of environment was realized as inevitable for sustainable development, the education system responded to it by including environmental education as a mandatory curricular component at all levels of education. Now that gender equality and gender justice have been realized as prerequisites for peaceful living and sustainable development, the education system has to respond positively by including gender studies or the women's studies components as compulsory curricular components at all levels of education. Madam Rekha Sharma is there. My humble request, take steps, initiate steps to include gender studies components at appropriate levels. We, the academics of gender studies, we are ready to formulate, to prepare the schedules, the components at each level to be included at each level. Please include that in our education system from preschool to professional education. And there is another danger, being brought up in a patriarchal world and having internalized patriarchal values so deeply, the teachers and educational administrators, they unknowingly perpetuate gender stereotypism and they propagate patriarchal values. They are the people who mold the upcoming generation. But if they are so biased, what kind of components or model they will provide to the children? In several of the studies we have conducted at the Department of Women's Studies, we have seen teachers saying, after all, a girl is a girl, a woman is a woman. Gender equality is an utopian idea. This is conveyed by teachers, the present teachers. So my request, my proposal, components related to gender justice must be included in pre-service and in-service teacher training. Though there still is a gender gap, thanks to the Millennium Development Goals, the enrollment of women in primary education has improved over the years. 98% of students in Indian context, they are enrolled in primary education. But as per the Sustainable Development Goal 4, the focus needs to be shifted to secondary and higher education, including professional education. But mere earning a degree can in no way ensure women empowerment. There are hundreds of boys and girls who, despite having a degree or post-graduation, they remain unemployable. The self-confidence to project one's worthiness, the inevitable digital skills, the willingness to move around or migrate to any part of the country, any part of the world, effective soft skills, team spirit, networking skills. These are lacking among our students, and these are highly demanded by the present day employers. Our education system must ensure the employability of the student community and instill the correct attitudes and aspirations for appropriate career or appropriate enterprises, making quality higher education accessible and affordable to girls and sexual minorities of all class and all categories. It is a major challenge in the present society. Our youngsters, especially the girls, should be equipped with better digital skills, with the awareness about their rights, about the cybersecurity measures, and lot much of inputs are required for capacity building of girls and women. Of course, for boys, what I have observed, what I have found out from my research is that boys, when compared to girls, they have better digital skills, perhaps due to their earlier exposure to digital equipments and all, maybe because of their networking with friends, they have better digital competencies. But our girls lack that. And in this case, I am so happy to appreciate and congratulate the NCW and its chairperson, Madam Rekha Sharma, that you have initiated the best program of digital literacy, digital awareness, cybersecurity for students across the country. Thank you so much, ma'am, because it is a need of the hour. Coming to the pandemic, It has resulted in the close down of schools, colleges, and hostels, which in turn has multiple impacts on the education and career aspirations of girls, more prominently girls. Over the past 12 months, the higher education sector has moved from classrooms and campuses to online meetings and discussions, and so has the school education. The pandemic has disclosed one thing: the gendered digital divide. When the new normal of online classes started, we realized how much digital divide is there between men and women. And we have seen numerous pictures on the Facebook and the Twitter where boys and girls climb on trees or mountains just to get good internet range signal for their online classes. It has created much more issues to the women faculties, where, as mentioned by Madam Rekha Sharma, women have to work from home and work for home. With the daycare centers, schools, colleges, and offices closed, the workload of women teachers increased 4 to 6 times. Many women had to learn the technologies of online classes with a heavy toll on their mental health. But now I feel happy and proud that almost all the women faculties, they have acquired lot much of digital skills, ICT technology, and they smoothly conduct classes for their students. Certain rapid assessment surveys, their reports show that the research output or scholarly production of women faculties have reduced during the pandemic. Of course, in making adjustments with whatever I mentioned here. But now I would expect a growth, a further, what you call a resurgence in their research productivity. What I have seen in this particular international conference, more than 150 paper presenters, majority of them being women faculties and women research scholars. How it has become possible. So that shows our women have overcome the initial teething troubles. Now they have become experts. Yet, irrespective of all its flaws, the ICT facilitated online classes have saved an academic year for millions of students across the world. Staying back at home with lesser or no facilities for online classes have had another impact. It has led parents to push their girls and adolescents into forced marriages. The exact data in this regard we are yet awaiting. We need more gender responsive policies with more investment in education to provide support to girls and other marginalized groups. Definitely, when I mentioned the lack of women in administrative positions, reservations, and financial grants to the economically weaker and socio-culturally backward sections need to be continued. More of scholarships and digital infrastructure in the form of mobiles, laptops, free Wi-Fi services, and online educational resources through radio, national television networks, and additional contact classes need to be provided to the needy students based on, yes, the principles of gender mainstreaming. And I also suggest flexible examination format, at least for this particular year, so that we cannot afford any youngster losing an academic year. So flexible examination formats are also a need of the hour. Above all, the gender bias embedded in our culture is to be eliminated through awareness campaigns of lifelong learning modes with active participation of both men and boys. The recent extraordinary session of GEM, the Global Education Meet, that was conducted online in October 2020, in the context of the pandemic, it has resolved to narrow the digital divide in education and develop quality open educational resources with a view to enable inclusive and equitable technology supported learning. In so doing, it has emphasized that the privacy of the learners will not be compromised, it will be protected. The declaration that followed also has expressed the commitment to increase the international aid for education in developing countries. With all these regional, national, and international commitments, we could look forward to a better future where education for all would become a reality and we leave no one behind in our march towards gender equality and sustainable development. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly ma'am, for giving us insight into the role of ICT and empowering gender. Gender. We also were happy to listen to you about how knowledge, skills, and attitude can bring about a change, how role of education can be a transformation in bringing about a change in gender bias, gender stereotyping. You also narrated few incidents about how the ICT skills are more seen in a male or boys as compared to females. Ma'am, we are delighted to know that about the status in Kerala regarding the education, the ICT skills that's going on. And and the way you urged Rekha ma'am to incorporate the integration of gender studies and women's studies as a compulsory subject. Ma'am, we would like to inform you that in B.Ed course, we have a special paper on gender, school and society. So like we train our students in that, and also about the cyber skills that you're talking about, cyber securities. Every year, Bombay Teachers Training College organizes a seminar, a workshop on cyber security for teachers. We also organize seminars on financial literacy for our students so that they know how to invest and how wisely they can invest. So ma'am, we are in that process and we are working towards achieving the goal that you were talking about, the sustainable development goals of gender equality, gender justice, and all other aspects to gender related issues. And also very well, ma'am, you pointed out the patriarchy system, how patriarchy system has made us realize that it's not only boys, but also it is the girls whom we need to understand and move forward in life. And we can, when we talk about gender, we always focus on females, but my perspective would be that there are males also who are not treated or undertreated at times in houses. I think we are fortunate. That's the reason we are over here on this platform, ma'am. And we promise Rekha ma'am and Molly ma'am that in future we will try our level best to work towards these issues and challenges that we face. And ma'am, our students are ICT skills. This whole lockdown period, we had a small module or a course on ICT skills. And let me tell you, this whole international conference is organized with the support of our students, without whom we would have not been able to do this. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you once again. And it was wonderful listening to you. Next, we have with us Vikki Shinde, a transgender gender activist, and she'll be talking on the topic challenges of sexual minorities and special group. Vikki Shinde has been working in the field of human rights law network for last 5 years. She has a registered organization, Shiv Shakti Foundation, that deals with transgender rights. The foundation helps the transgender person for settling any issues related to their health, education, documents, or jobs. The foundation works extensively for the LGBT community towards their rights and addressing their issues. She is also associated with the Aravani Art Project, which is a woman and trans woman art collective, which involves a collaborative public art wall art project to raise voice and awareness of the friendship between trans women and women in public spaces. Though the creative collaborations, they raise awareness of the social possibilities of art making and the conversation that it enables. Vikki Shinde has been working extensively in the health sector of the transgender community. They have collaborated with Cancer Patients Aid Association for the last 3 years and have organized the first ever health checkup for the transgender community.
Wow.
This endeavor was supported by Ms. Priya Dutt. Ms. Vikki Shinde, madam, welcome to this online session and to the international conference. I welcome you on behalf of Bombay Teachers Training College. You can please start. आप शुरू कर सकते हो.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम विक्की शिंदे है और मैं एक ट्रांसजेंडर हूँ. मतलब ट्रांसजेंडर हूँ अभी. जब भी मैं अगर मेरे बारे में बताने जाऊँ तो मैं 10 साल में मुझे लगा कि मुझ में कुछ कमी है. मतलब मैं किसी प्रोग्राम में या फंक्शन में जाने से डरती थी, तो मुझे एकदम ऐसे हेवी लगता था कि मैं कैसे पब्लिक में जाऊँ, मुझे डर लगता था. और उसमें 10-12 साल की उम्र में मालूम पड़ने लगा कि अपनी बॉडी कुछ अलग है, अपना अंदर से जो आवाज आ रही है, फीलिंग कुछ अलग है. वो टाइम पे मैं स्कूल में जाती थी, मतलब पहले तो घर से. अगर मैं आईने के सामने भी खड़ी हो जाती हूँ तो भाई, बड़े भाई या बड़ी बहन रहेगी तो क्या लड़की की तरह आईने के सामने खड़ा रहता है, ऐसे वैसे. मतलब मैं मानती थी कि मेरी बॉडी एक मेल की है, मैं एक लड़का बोल के पैदा हुई हूँ, लेकिन जो मेरे अंदर की आवाज थी उसमें मुझे बिल्कुल लड़का दिखाई नहीं दे रहा था. वहां मुझे बस लड़की दिखाई दे रही थी. और वो टाइम ऐसा था कि वो टाइम पे ट्रांसजेंडर, मतलब आज जितने ट्रांसजेंडर दिख रहे हैं उससे तो 1 या 2 गुना भी नहीं दिखते होंगे वो टाइम पे ट्रांसजेंडर. और वो समय पे जब भी मैं समाज में, मतलब घर से जब बाहर निकलती थी तो लड़कों का या आजू-बाजू की सोसाइटी जो मुझे छेड़ना या चिढ़ाना, स्कूल में जाएंगे तो सर हम पे कम ध्यान देते थे, मतलब क्योंकि ये ऐसा है, लड़कियों में खेलता है, चिढ़ाना, बच्चे छेड़ते थे. उसमें एक डर था कि अगर मुझे ऐसे ही जीना है, मैं सोचती थी अगर मैं ऐसे ही जीऊंगी तो. उस टाइम तो नालसा जजमेंट नहीं था और ना ही कोई ट्रांस राइट्स पे बात करने वाला इंसान. लेकिन वो टाइम पे मुझे ऐसे लगता था कि मैं कैसे जी पाऊंगी, मुझे ये समाज जी एक्सेप्ट करेगा या नहीं करेगा. तो मैंने अपनी पढ़ाई पूरी करते करते मैंने टेलरिंग, कुकिंग, पार्लर, मतलब जो भी आर्ट वर्क होता है, मैंने काफी आर्ट वर्क के कोर्सेज कर चुकी थी. क्योंकि अगर मैं कल को मतलब मैं नहीं, मुझे लोग एक्सेप्ट करते तो मैं एटलीस्ट में मेरा पेड वर्क. और उसके बाद टाइम चला जाता था, मैं स्कूल से काफी काम, मतलब मैं काटा साबुन बेचती थी, मैं प्लास्टिक का सामान, कटलरी का बेचती थी. तो मुझे समझ में आने लगा कि ये कैसा समाज है, ये समाज को क्या एक्सेप्टेंस है. लेकिन उसके बाद स्कूल के बाद जब भी समाज और लोगों में उठना बैठना चालू हुआ और फिर मालूम पड़ने लगा कि नहीं, मैं अलग हूँ और मेरा एक समाज अलग है. कि मैं उनमें जाऊं, उनमें बैठूं। तो मैं खुद को एक ट्रांसजेंडर कहती हूँ। मैं जब भी मेरे घर में मैंने बताया कि मैं ट्रांसजेंडर बनना चाहती हूँ या तो मैं ट्रांसजेंडर हूँ, तो काफी प्रॉब्लम्स मुझे घर से क्रिएट हुई थी। मतलब मेरे पापा आर्मी में थे और उनको तो बिल्कुल ये पसंद नहीं था कि कोई ऐसा मेरा बच्चा भी हो। लेकिन फिर भी बहुत सी कठिनाइयाँ हमारे जैसों को घर में एक तो एक्सेप्ट करते हैं, तो बहुत सी प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट होती है, या तो घर से भगा देते हैं। अभी ऐसे भी लोग हैं, ये अभी आज अगर मैं मुंबई से बात कर रही हूँ, तो काफी लोग ऐसे हैं यूपी, बिहार, कर्नाटका के, कि जिनके माँ बाप ने उनको घर से निकाल दिया है, वो बच्चों की रहने के लिए आसरा नहीं है, तो फिर वो जाके कई और एरिया में, मतलब जैसे अभी अगर मेरा दिल लड़की का है, मैं मानती हूँ मेरी बॉडी अगर मेल की है लेकिन मेरा दिल लड़की का है, तो मुझे वैसे ही रहना पसंद होगा। अगर मुझे कोई जबरदस्ती करता है, तो ऐसे हैरेसमेंट घर से भी बहुत होती है कम्युनिटी मेंबर्स को। और मैं ऐसे केसेस अभी देखती हूँ, मैं ह्यूमन राइट्स में काम करती हूँ, तो मुझे ऐसे केसेस मिलते हैं कि आज भी लोग अपने बच्चों को शॉक ट्रीटमेंट दिए जाते हैं घर में, कि उनका माइंड चेंज हो जाए या वो अलग से रहे। सिर्फ ट्रांस वुमेन के बारे में नहीं, तो ये ट्रांस मैन के बारे में भी बात करूंगी, क्योंकि एलजीबीटी कम्युनिटी, मतलब कभी कोई लेस्बियन लड़की है, तो खुद उसका भाई या बाप उसके ऊपर हाथ डालेगा और बोलेगा ये देख तू लड़की है, तो ये गलत है। ये नहीं होना चाहिए समाज में। मैं आज जब भी मेरे घर में प्रॉब्लम हुई, मैं 2 साल भर घर के बाहर रही, लेकिन मेरी ग्रैंडमदर बहुत समझदार थी और उन्होंने मुझे एक्सेप्ट किया घर में बाद में, और आज मैं मेरे फैमिली के साथ रहती हूँ। लेकिन मैं हमेशा वो सहन करती हूँ रास्ते में। आज भी अगर आज 2014 में जब नालसा जजमेंट आया है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक जजमेंट दिया था कि ट्रांसजेंडर एक कम्युनिटी समाज में है, काफी सालों से है, उनका इतिहास है, कि मतलब अगर इतिहास बताने जाएंगे तो पहले राजा महाराजाओं के जमाने में ट्रांसजेंडर का काम था, राजा के दरबार में काम करना, नाच गाना करना, रसोई करना, या तो राजा लोग जब भी लड़ाई को जाते थे लाखों सैन्य लेके, तभी कोई औरत नहीं जाती थी, राजा लोग और वो सैन्य के साथ उनकी सेवा करने को लड़ाई के। उनके कपड़े धोने से लेके उनके सोने तक का काम ट्रांसजेंडर लोग, और उनका एक एक पोस्ट थी वो, कि वो वही काम करते थे, कि राजा रानी की रानी की दासियां रहना, ये काम था। लेकिन जब अंग्रेज आए, जब इंडिया में उन्होंने एंट्री किया, और जब भी मतलब काफी ऐसी चीजें हुई वो टाइम पे, तो वो ये गुनाह मान दिया गया। उसके बाद जब ये समाज को, हमारे ट्रांसजेंडर समाज को उठा के एक मेन स्ट्रीम में, जब जो अभी आज मेन समाज में हम आना चाहते हैं, वो समाज से उठा के बाहर रख दिया, तो उनके पास कोई वो टाइम पे जॉब नहीं था, काम नहीं था, कमाने का कोई जरिया नहीं था। तो आज आज भी अगर मैं बात करूं, अगर मैं ट्रांसजेंडर हूँ, और आज तो नालसा जजमेंट के थ्रू ऐसे बताया गया है कि इन्हें ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी के लोगों को भी काम करने दो, पढ़ने दो, लिखने दो। लेकिन आज मैं 5-6 साल हो गया, मैं ये देख रही हूँ, या मैं कोशिश में हूँ कि सच में क्या मेरी ट्रांसजेंडर बहनें मेरी काम कर रही है, कोई उनको एक्सेप्ट कर रहा है? नहीं, क्योंकि मैं जब भी रास्ते से जाती हूँ, एक तो कोई ना कोई तो ये इंसिडेंस मेरे साथ जरूर होता है कि अ, अभी मैं ऑफिस से, मेरा शाम का टाइमिंग है निकलना घर के लिए, ट्रेन में मैं चढ़ती हूँ, मेरे पीछे वाला बंदा मुझे पूछता है क्या आइटम, कहाँ जा रही हो? तो मैंने बोला भाई घर पे जा रही। तो उसने खुद का घड़ी का टाइम बताता है, खुद की घड़ी का, और वो बोलता है अरे ये तो तुम्हारे धंधे का टाइम है और तुम घर का नाम कैसे ले रहे हो? तो मैं थोड़ा शॉक हो गई कि ये कोई कम्युनिटी का पर्सन नहीं है, या तो ये ट्रांसजेंडर नहीं है, एक मेल है। ये अपने दिमाग में ये टाइमिंग फिट बिठा के रखा है कि ट्रांसजेंडर का टाइमिंग है धंधे पे जाने का रात को 8 बजे के बाद। तो फिर मैंने तो सवाल करना चालू किए, तो बाद में उसको जो मैंने समझाया या मैंने उसको सेंसिटाइज किया, तो वो मुझे सॉरी बोला। लेकिन बस मुझे यही चीज एक हमेशा, जब भी मैं किसी, आज मैं कॉलेज स्कूल में जब भी सेंसिटाइजेशन प्रोग्राम को जाती हूँ तो वो कॉलेज में या स्कूल में मालूम होता है कि कोई गेस्ट आ रहा है, कोई प्रोग्राम है, लेकिन वो गेट के वॉचमैन को नहीं मालूम होता है कि कोई आ रहा है। तो हमेशा ये मेरे साथ हुआ है कि जब भी हम गेट पे गए तो वॉचमैन ने बाहर, गेट के बाहर ही रुका दिया है, रुको रुको रुको, आप लोग को एंट्री नहीं है, फिर हम बताएंगे, या तो फिर वो कोई ऊपर से नीचे आएगा हमें लेने को, फिर वो वॉचमैन और वो जो सिक्योरिटी रहेंगी वो हमारे मुंह के पास देखते रहे। मतलब सेंसिटाइजेशन नहीं है। आज 2014 के बाद भी लोगों को यही लगता है कि ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी सिर्फ नाच गाना ही कर सकती है, या सेक्स वर्क ही कर सकती है, या भीख ही मांग सकती है। नहीं, आज मैं खुद आज मतलब मैंने मेरे कम्युनिटी के हम 4-5 मेंबर ने टेलरिंग क्लास, जैसे कि केंद्र सरकार की एक योजना चालू है काफी सालों से, कला कौशल योजना। तो मैंने वर्ली में वो संस्था में यूनिवर्सिटी में 5 ट्रांसजेंडर हम लोग अभी टेलरिंग का कोर्स कर रहे हैं। और मैं यही चाहती हूँ कि सिर्फ टेलरिंग ही नहीं, और भी बहुत सी चीजें ऐसी है। देखिए, अगर ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी को काम नहीं मिलेगा तो उनको एटलीस्ट ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म बनने चाहिए उनके लिए। देखिए, आज कोरोना का पीरियड इतना बड़ा हो गया, आज सबसे ज्यादा तकलीफ हुई तो ट्रांसजेंडर को, या जिसका पेट हाथ पे है उसको, क्योंकि ट्रांसजेंडर ऐसा है कि वो पहले घर से बाहर, काफी लोगों घर छोड़ के आए हैं या तो भगा दिए गए हैं, तो वो भागे से रह रहे थे। उसके बाद आज उनको जब लॉकडाउन का पीरियड आया, मैंने एक 8 दिन मैं खुद अगर मैं मेरे घर में रहती हूँ तो 8 दिन मैंने जितना था मेरे पास मैंने खर्चा करके खा लिया। लेकिन 8 दिन के बाद मैं समझ में नहीं आ रहा था मैं कैसे रहूंगी, मैं मेरे माँ बाप या मेरे घर में जितने मेंबर है मैं उनको कैसे संभालूंगी। अगर मुझे ये प्रॉब्लम है तो जो अपना घर छोड़ के आए हैं, जिनको घर नहीं है, वो लोग की क्या अवस्था होगी। काफी लोगों को जो भाड़े से रह रहे थे उनको घर से निकाल दिया गया। मैं एक इंसिडेंट जरूर बताना चाहूंगी। मैंने कुलाबा पुलिस स्टेशन में मैंने सेंसिटाइजेशन प्रोग्राम किया था, और वहाँ के एक साहब है, सारुंके साहब, उनकी ड्यूटी थी वीटी स्टेशन पे, और 3 ट्रांसजेंडर, शायद वो यूपी एमपी साइड के थे, और वो वहां पहुंचे और उन्होंने उनसे पूछा, मतलब अगर ये इंसिडेंट बताने जाओ तो मेरे आंखों में भी पानी आएगा, कि वो इंसान ने उनको पूछा आपको क्या हुआ, तो उन्होंने बताया कि हम भाड़े से रह रहे थे, हमको घर से निकाल दिया, पिछले 2 दिन से हम भूखे हैं, और उसके बाद वो बोले कि हमको ऐसे ऐसे गाँव जाना है। तो वो इंस्पेक्टर ने उनको खाना भी खिलाया, उनको टिकट निकाल के दी, प्लस घर तक पहुंचने के लिए पैसा दिया, और ट्रेन में भी उनको खाना दे दिया। और उसकी वो गाड़ी जाने के बाद उन्होंने मुझे फोन करके बताया इंस्पेक्टर ने कि विक्की जी हमने ऐसे ऐसे काम किया। तो मुझे बहुत प्राउड फील हो गया। मेरे पूरे कोरोना के पीरियड में अगर सबसे सुनहरा काम और अच्छा लगा तो ये काम, क्योंकि जब मैंने सेंसिटाइजेशन प्रोग्राम किया था तभी ये लोगों के जो सवाल थे मुझे, तो वो सवाल के जवाब मुझे वो कामों में मिल गए कि नहीं, चलो 10 में से 2 लोगों ने तो ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी को मदद की, तो एटलीस्ट जाके आगे कुछ होगा। लेकिन ये बहुत जरूरी है कि लोगों ने समझना चाहिए। आज अगर मैं कुछ कोई कोर्स या तो कोई लोन सुविधा नहीं है ट्रांसजेंडर को, काफी टैलेंटेड है, हम लोग खाना अच्छा बनाते हैं, हम लोग 4-5 जन मिलकर कैंटीन डाल सकते हैं, लेकिन फाइनेंस का प्रॉब्लम, या तो कोई ऐसी योजनाएं नहीं बनी है कि कोई लोन मिले, या कोई प्राइवेट कंपनीज नहीं है जो हमें लोन दे सकती है। अगर ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी कई एप्लीकेशन भी करती है तो ट्रांस बोल के उनका फॉर्म रिजेक्ट किया जाता है। आज मैं चाहती हूँ कि मेरा आज लॉकडाउन में सबको फ्री में राशन बट रहा था रेशन कार्ड पे, लेकिन ट्रांसजेंडर को राशन कार्ड ही नहीं, तो ट्रांसजेंडर क्या करेगा, क्या खाएगा। इतनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम वो टाइम पे क्रिएट हुई। और आज की बात मैं समझती हूँ, चलो आज मैं बात कर रही हूँ इसलिए लोग मुझे पहचान रहे हैं, क्योंकि मैं समझ सकती हूँ कि हर जगह मैं नहीं पहुंच पाऊंगी, या तो आज मेरे जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं आज उनकी सिक्योरिटी नहीं है, आज मेरी भी सिक्योरिटी नहीं है। कल को मुझे अगर कुछ हो जाता है तो मेरे लिए कोई दवा खाने की स्कीम नहीं है। दवा खाने में जाएंगे, पहला एक इंसिडेंट कि अगर मैं कुछ हुआ है और मैं किसी गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल में जाती हूँ, तो पहला तो हम जैसे एंट्री करते हैं वार्ड बॉय और नर्स में ऐसी किशमिश चालू हो जाती है कि अरे कौन है, फिर लेडीज डॉक्टर आएगा या जेंट्स डॉक्टर वो तो पता नहीं, लेकिन लेडीज डॉक्टर आएगी तो बोलेंगे जेंट्स को बुलाओ, जेंट्स आएगा तो मुझे लेडीज को बुलाओ। और अगर दोनों डॉक्टर आएंगे तो वो अपने साथ 10-12 जो पढ़ाई करते वो बच्चों को लेके आएंगे, हमको रूम में लेके जाके पूरा कपड़ा नीचे उतर के देखेंगे। इवन इतनी गंदी फीलिंग है वो, जब भी हमारे मतलब पट्टी लेके नापा जाता है, तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कम्युनिटी के साथ, ये गलत है। तो ट्रांसजेंडर के बारे में सेंसिटाइजेशन जरूरी है, वार्ड बॉय में, नर्सेस में, डॉक्टर एक डॉक्टर लोग बहुत बड़ी चीज है, मैं उनकी रिस्पेक्ट करती हूँ। लेकिन एक बार एक डॉक्टर ने मुझसे सवाल किया था, मैं मेरे एक दोस्त को लेके दवाखाने गई थी और मेरे को देख के वो पहचान गया कि ये ट्रांसजेंडर, लेकिन वो तो लड़की जैसे दिखती है। तो वो तुरंत डॉक्टर वो मुझको पूछा इनको नीचे क्या है, तो बोला डॉक्टर ऐसे क्या बात कर रहे हो, अगर आप डॉक्टर हो आपको पता होना चाहिए ट्रांसजेंडर क्या। तो ऐसे बहुत से इंसिडेंट हमारे साथ आज भी होते आ रहे। मैं यही चाहूंगी कि अभी जो मैंने यही चाहूंगी कि समाज ने अपना नजरिया बदलना चाहिए, क्योंकि मेरे बहुत से ऐसी कम्युनिटी मेंबर है कि जो बोलते गुरु नहीं मैं ये करूंगी, गुरु मैं वो करूंगी, लेकिन जब भी वो समाज में आने को देखते या तो आते हैं तो उनको ये समाज एक्सेप्ट नहीं करता। मैं कॉलेज के बच्चों के साथ, यंग यूथ के साथ काम करना ज्यादा पसंद करती हूँ, क्योंकि वो समझ रहे हैं कि ये भी एक इंसान ही है, 2 हाथ 2 पैर 2 आंख 1 नाक ये सबको है, बस इनकी फीलिंग्स अलग है। और अगर हर चीजों को तोलना है तो हमारी सेक्सुअलिटी को पकड़ के मत देखिए, एक इंसान समझ के चलिए। हम भी उतनी ही मेहनत कर सकते हैं, हम में भी उतना ही दम। और मैं आज जो काम कर रही हूँ, मेरी जो फाउंडेशन है, मुझे कुछ सिलाई मशीन इनर व्हील क्लब की तरफ से आई है, तो मैंने हम 5-7 जन ने अभी एडमिशन लिया है यूनिवर्सिटी में, जन शिक्षण संस्था करके। तो मैं यही अभी आगे चाहूंगी कि मैं सीख के और भी लोगों को सिखाऊं, मैं ये मशीन का मेरा इस्तेमाल करूं, मेरे 4 लोग आके यहाँ बैठे, भले वो कपड़े की थैलियां सिए, मास्क सिए या ब्लाउज सिए, परकर सिलाए, ऐसे बहुत से काम है। और मैं यही चाहूंगी कि ऐसे कोई भी अगर अपना अगर उनके पास कोई काम होगा और वो अगर देना चाहेगा तो जरूर हमसे कांटेक्ट रखे। और ये स्पेशली मैं यही बोलना चाहूंगी कि काफी चीजें अभी तक राइट मतलब हक की हमें नहीं मिली है, ये बस कागज पे है। जैसे अभी छोटी सी और एक बात, अभी जो बिल पास हुआ था ट्रांसजेंडर राइट बिल 2016 से, उसके लिए हम लोग झगड़ रहे थे, लेकिन वो बिल में भी अभी काफी चीजें ऐसी है जो कि हमारा समाज, जो हमारा ट्रांसजेंडर समाज है, जो राम राज्य से चलता आ रहा है, वो समाज उसका हनन करते हैं, उसके नियमों का, गुरु चेला ये परंपरा का हनन करते हैं। और एक बात उसमें ऐसे है कि ट्रांसजेंडर पे अगर रेप या हैरेसमेंट होती है तो 6 महीने से 2 साल तक की सजा है, लेकिन अगर लड़की के लिए रेप होता है तो 7 साल की यह उम्र कैद है। तो फिर हमारे साथ ये भेदभाव क्यों? राम राज्य के बारे में अगर वो टॉपिक निकला इसलिए मैं थोड़ा और बताऊंगी कि जब भी रामायण में राम जी जब भी वनवास को निकले थे, अयोध्या नगरी के बाहर पूरी अयोध्या नगरी की पब्लिक आई पूरी, और उस मुझे मेरा स्वागत कीजिए, और प्रभु रामचंद्र जी वहां से चले गए। लेकिन 14 साल बाद जब प्रभु रामचंद्र जी लौटे तो पूरी अयोध्या नगरी अंदर से सजी थी, लेकिन गेट के बाहर कुछ 14-15 जन गेट के बाजू में खड़े थे। तो प्रभु रामचंद्र जी ने पूछा लक्ष्मण जी ये कौन है? तो लक्ष्मण जी ने कहा कि भैया आपने तो भाइयों को और बहनों को जाने को कहा था, ये ना भाई है ना बहन है। तो ये लोग तुम्हारा आपका 14 साल होगा यहाँ पे वेट कर रहे हैं। तो प्रभु रामचंद्र जी ने खुश होकर तब जमाने में वरदान दिया था कि कलयुग में आपका राज्य होगा। शायद ये कलयुग है, लेकिन हम हमारे हक से जीना चाहते हैं। तो ये मेरा जो मुझे इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे बोलने का मेरा एक्सपीरियंस, मेरे साथ जो इंसिडेंट्स होते हैं, थैंक यू राबिया मैम। ये तो मम्मी है मेरी, मतलब इन्होंने मुझे समझने के लिए बहुत बड़ा सवाल किया था। ओ माय गॉड, जब भी मैं पहली बार राबिया मैम से मिली, राबिया मैम सिर्फ मुझे देखती थी, हंसती थी। लेकिन प्रोग्राम खत्म होने के बाद जब ही दूसरे दिन उन्होंने फोन किया कि विक्की आप हो कौन, तब मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा उनसे बात करके, और तब से आज तक मैं उनसे जुड़ी हूँ। थैंक यू मैम, इतना बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म पे आज मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया, मेरे समाज के बारे में मुझे बताने का चांस मिला। अगर किसी को कोई सवाल या कोई मेरे से कम ज्यादा बातचीत हो गई होगी तो माफ करना, सॉरी। थैंक यू राबिया मैम, थैंक यू लुबाना मैम, आपने भी बहुत मेहनत ली मुझसे बात करने के लिए। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू विकी शिंदे।
थैंक यू मैम।
हम लोग एक्चुअली टच्ड हो गए कि जब आपने अपनी आप बीती बताई थी, एंड we would express our thanks to Lubna ma'am and Rabia ma'am also for connecting us to Vikki Shinde. For the benefit of our audience, I would just summarize what Vikki Shinde has told in English. Now I'll just summarize it, what she has told. I am Vikki Shinde. I'm just narrating what she might have got it translated from someone in her acquaintance. I am Vikki Shinde, a transgender. Since the last 6 years, I have been working with the Human Rights Law Network as a receptionist. However, now I have chosen to work as an activist. I have registered a foundation called as Shiv Shakti. In today's world, when there is so much discrimination between men and women, we transgenders face the worst brunt as I have seen. When I was a child, I was scared to go for birthday parties, weddings, and any other social gatherings because a nagging voice inside me said so. I was born as a male, but all the feelings and emotions I felt were woman-like, and I really wanted to live like that. The first place I felt unwanted was sadly in my own house. In the house, my family kept taunting me over and over. But I think during her presentation, she shared how her grandmother supported her. Next was the society. People in my surroundings always teased me and I felt terrible. Then I thought to myself, if I wore a sari, would this society accept me? This was way before the Nalsa judgment and without any law enforcement. Soon after, in 2014, the Nalsa judgment was passed and a lot of support was received by the transgender community. I too received a lot of support. When I traveled by train, people used to make fun of me. One instance was when I left office at 8:30 and sat in the train, a boy sitting behind me asked me, "Item, where are you going?" To which I said, "I am going home." And looking at his watch, added, "This is the time you are open for business?" This is how deeply rooted in our society culture it is to harass transgender. This is the idea that I want to change. And she did mention that it is only through sensitization that we can bring about awareness. Every door that I stood in front of was closed to me and I was made to run away or shoot from there. When I wanted to accept this life wholeheartedly, I learned many things like sewing, stitching, making diyas, rangoli making, so that I could learn a decent livelihood. So I could feed myself if necessary. She shared her pandemic situation also with us. Now I feel that this needs to be changed. After the judgment of Nalsa, I can confidently stand up for my rights. I have always advised the newbies and the younger ones in my community to develop skills and hobbies too, so that we can get a good job. And if we do, and our colleagues don't accept us because they aren't sensitive to us, they won't be able to work with you or accept you. They consider us as sex workers, beggars, or entertainers. Nobody thinks of us beyond that. I think that's a harsh reality. All we really want is to be recognized for who we are, to be given the same opportunities and same rights as anyone else. Uh, a donor has provided the Shiv Shakti Foundation sewing machines to help us build ourselves, to educate ourselves, and get certified in sewing so that we can be self-sufficient and don't need to resort to begging or working as sex workers. We will be adding various courses like salon, parlor, etc. People are still reserved where we are concerned. However, abroad people respect us more and we are included in the LGBTQ community as well. However, India still doesn't have the same awareness. Sad state of affairs. I love working with the youth as they are more accepting than the older generation who are still rigid in their thinking. I will keep fighting for our rights and I'll continue to keep trying to eradicate this discrimination that we as a transgender community face. I would like to thank Ms. Rabia Patel, who I have associated with so many years. She asked me so many questions the next day after we met, and I felt extremely comfortable and found motherly warmth while talking to her. If we delve into history, the role of a transgender was to entertain the king or the emperor, or handle the rasoi or the kitchen, or stand behind the queen as a dasi or a maid. If the king went to war, he took hundreds of soldiers with him to the battlefield, during which no female was present to cook for them or wash their clothes. This work was undertaken by us, transgenders. When the English took over and saw this, they realized that males were living with males. It was extremely frowned upon until the 377 Act came into existence. I am skipping a little bit in between. Another story is that of Prabhu Ramchandra ji. When he was traveling, Ram asked everyone to go home and that he would return after 14 years. Listening to this, Prabhuji got happy and blessed the transgender present there, saying that in the Kalyug, you will rule. Maybe this is the Kalyug he spoke of. After the judgment that has been passed, we are all working towards a more progressive role in the society to gain more recognition for ourselves. Currently, we are mentoring 7 transgender in the community. We constantly look for all kind of support in cash and kind so that we can live a fulfilling life too. And the places that I cannot travel to or reach, I hope that someone in the community can make it there. All I can do is try and help them reach there by means of training, mentoring, providing a skills platform, aiding them, etc. Even today, we face almost 10% discrimination. We are raped and sometimes e-teased, and we cannot file a police case sometimes because nobody believes us or accepts us. And sometimes we are scared as we lack security. All I really want is for us as a community to not to be looked down on, discriminated, and to progress. I would really like to once again thank Rabia ma'am for this platform and supporting me in all the endeavors till date. Thank you, Vikki Shinde जी. ये
राजू
आपने जो बोला था मैंने उसको इंग्लिश में थोड़ा अपने ऑडियंस के लिए वो पढ़ के बता दिया है.
Raju ma'am, also tell her about the appreciation that she's
Thank you.
on Zoom.
Yes. आपके लिए चैट में काफी लोगों ने आपका एप्रिसिएशन किया है. आपको कहा है कि आपने जो आप बीती बताई है वो एज अ सोसाइटी मेंबर उनके साथ रिलेट कर सकते हैं एंड दे विल ट्राई टू सी दैट जो एटीट्यूड है ट्रांसजेंडर के टूवर्ड्स उसमें चेंज ला सकते, मोर सेंसिटिव हो जाए हम लोग के किस तरह से आप लोग डिस्क्रिमिनेशन और डिफिकल्टी फेस कर सकते हैं। तो बाकी लोगों ने भी आपको चैट में कहा है कि दे आर फुल्ली विथ यू, आपको पूरा सपोर्ट देंगे।
थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू सब।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
Raju ma'am, Dr. Balani will speak.
Yes, I hand over the session to Dr. Balani, Principal of Bombay Teachers Training College.
Good afternoon to one and all, respected Dr. Rekha Sharma, Dr. Kuruvila, my dear colleagues from Bombay Teachers Training College, BTTC family entire. Today's session is totally very sensitive, and the kind of stories which are coming up are really compelling us to reflect what kind of disparity exists in our society in a number of ways. Let it be disparity between male and female, and let it be the disparity between male, female, and other genders. So that means if you look at and reflect as far as our education system is concerned, I will say that we are literate, but we are not educated. We might have on the degrees, might have got the masters, postgraduate diplomas, doctoral studies, deal it, and maybe have, we can say, experience of more than 20 or 30 years also. But still, we haven't yet gained a momentum of, we haven't yet moved from literacy to the education. We have spoken these things many times on digital platforms and in various conferences, but when it comes to the action, we have not done fairly good on our part. So being educationist, I believe that younger generation is with us. So we need to reflect more on after the pandemic. We must think of the different focus groups which can be formed in the team, and these teams shall identify the different groups, socially disadvantaged groups, and they must go and visit and spend some time so that they can understand. See, because what happens today, we are able to create awareness among them as far as these challenges all these communities are facing, like transgenders are concerned. Likewise, there are many more vulnerable sections of the society, maybe the old age people, maybe the special children, maybe people suffering from different diseases lying in the hospitals, or maybe children living on the footpaths, and many more things are concerned. And as educationists, we must think about to do something in reality. And pandemic is almost over, and post pandemic, while undertaking community work, I will urge to all the students of Bombay Teachers Training College, all my colleagues, to take up some practical and social projects so that we can reach out to the communities and can extend the helping hand to them. I believe that if we will do, we will engage in that kind of work, when we will closely work with these communities, probably we will be able to educate our children, our students more, and then later on, after their training is completed, I believe that they will be able to, we can say, multiply this message among the students. They will be more sensitive, they will be more responsible, they will be more mature, they will be more accountable, and they will start thinking about how they can contribute to the society. Because one of the parameters of the gender parity is that we are not so sensitive towards our environment, towards our other members of the society. I think it's high time. uh, we have spoken a lot during this conference. Many issues has emerged, which requires a lot of attention on our part. But I believe that Now it's time to take action in our own level, at our own, we can say, in our own locality. We must contribute to the social cause. I think I'm thankful to Vikki Kaushal I'm thankful to Harish Iyer who has shown a lot of strength and courage to share their stories. We were not aware about those stories, and the kind of the life kind of situation which exists, the kind of insensitivity that our society has shown to them. I'm really feeling very sorry about it, and I would like to apologize on that front to both of them. There may be many more, but I assure you that now henceforth we will take these issues in a more concrete manner. Whatever we can do from our end, we will try to reach out to the communities and help such groups in our own way. I believe that with that commitment, I must hand over the portal to Dr. Lubna Mansoori.
Thank you, Dr. Beladi. And I'm sure that we faculty and the students will take up this call and move into action to work for the marginalized and the disadvantaged from our society. Thank you so much. No session can be over without a vote of thanks. Chip Conley quote, social scientists have found that the fastest way to feel happiness is to practice gratitude, unquote. As a part of the global society, let me share my happiness by expressing gratitude. Professor Jaya Dantas elucidated the different facets of health. She highlighted the status and the number of women representation in different sections in spite of trials they faced. She appreciated how women display resilience, transforming society to include marginalized and underprivileged in the mainstream by participatory approach. The current gender impact of the pandemic was brought forward. Thank you, ma'am, for bringing out the healthcare system in relation to gender. Gratitude is expressed to Dr. Anshumala for bringing forth the connections of health and gender from a medical point of view. The women health issues and dispositions were highlighted. The medical point of view was represented by Dr. Anshumala. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Rekha Sharma elucidated the exertions of women during the pandemic. She expressed that women miss their we time, and this was even felt with much gravity during the pandemic. We acknowledge the ingenuities of the Commission to begin with various endeavors for helping women. The motto, which Dr. Rekha Sharma believes in, is a woman can only help another woman. And I think we all believe in that, ma'am, and we are there with you. Thank you, ma'am. A big shout out of gratitude to Professor Molly Kuruvila. She expressed that we have written much about the status of women, but education is the only weapon for gender mainstreaming. She showed how use of ICT has made the global society more emancipated. ICT has given wings to women and society. That was the highlight of Madam's speech. ICT will enable lifelong learning, which was very well expressed by Madam as the underlying ethos of the progress. A question, has education fulfilled its goal and objectives, really made us thinking. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views on how technology and gender can go hand in hand for the progress of the society. And thank you, Vikki Shinde, for sharing your personal narrative with us, which was truly moving, that how transgenders, although we give them respect, we call them during weddings, we call them during the birth and some other occasions, but they lack the respect that they should have. So we should take a pledge that we should be sensitive and acknowledge the individuality that each one of us have. Thank you, Vikki Shinde, ma'am. Grateful to all the participants and the presenters for being a part of this conference and joining hands with us. We are indebted to all the collaborating institutions to have come with us for organizing this online conference. A big thank you to the faculty and the student volunteers who were the lifeline, who made the smooth flow of the conference possible. They may not be in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it is each one of them who have made this go so smoothly and without any technical or any other issues or glitches. And thank you to each and everyone. The feedback form is for both the days together. Please fill in your feedback form. It is posted in the Zoom link. It will soon be posted in the Telegram as well as on the YouTube channel.
It's posted.
Thank you, everyone.
Form is posted already on YouTube, Zoom, and Telegram. You all can access from any of these BTTC platforms. And also reminding everybody to get back with us at 2 o'clock for the paper presentation sessions. We already have communicated the session links of parallel sessions to all the paper presenters. And we can post, we had posted them yesterday also. So you could have downloaded, but again, we'll post it here. Thank you so much. We get back.
Hello, Neelu. Hello, Neelu.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, yes.
Yeah, please remind them about our valedictory session also. Join back
yes, the valedictory session is at 4 o'clock. So we also meet again on the same link of Zoom at 4. We have our session from 4 till 4:30. So we'll also listen to the valedictory speaker.
Neelu ma'am, you are uploading the document for the Google Meet links, or should I do it?
You can post it.
Okay, for the benefit of the participants who would like to join any of the session and hear the presenter's perspective, we are uploading all the links. That includes yesterday's links also, but then today's link, you all can go and join any of the sessions. I'll just be posting it in the Zoom chat. It's a PDF file you can download and join at 2 o'clock in any of the sessions.
We'll stop live streamings, ma'am.
The 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
The 2 minutes. Let
okay. Yeah.
Download this.
Ma'am, where is the feedback link, ma'am? I could not find it. Hello?
Get you?
I couldn't find the feedback link. I think I'm not in the Telegram group. What is the other way to get the feedback link, ma'am?
I have posted it on Zoom chat. This is the third time I have again posted for you.
Okay. I have seen it.
The parallel session links are also posted in the Zoom chat. Participants can join the session, any of the sessions at 2 o'clock.
Mainly not
Request Team DTTC to please read the Zoom chat.
So you may stop live streaming on YouTube and please keep the Zoom meeting on for some more time.